Chapter 141. In the middle of the night 3, silence filled the area for a moment. Harol was still quiet while someone was whispering in Prince John's ear as he observed Cal and the whales. Witira started to speak at that moment. She seemed more confident than ever while looking at the leaders of the 4 kingdoms. She did not even bow toward them. "My name is Witira, and I am here as the representative of the whale tribe. We came at the invitation of our benefactor, young Master Cal. Nice to meet you." She was respectful, but still showed her status. It was only obvious that she acted this way as the whales were the greatest faction in the ocean, especially after defeating the mermaids. As the future queen of the whales, there was no reason for her to be subservient to these 4 leaders. Furthermore, they were the tribe that was known to be the strongest after the dragons. The people present could all see the whip wrapped around Witira's forearm. Cal watched all of this with satisfaction. He had asked Witira to do this, set the tone for the meeting. Witira properly set the tone as an influential member of a strong tribe. Pazetin and Archie stood behind her with stoic expressions to help set the tone as well. The warriors and the respective members of each kingdom probably have a strong impression of the whale tribe now. Their impression of the Roan kingdom that was able to bring the whale tribe to this meeting should have improved as well. Not bad. Cal was satisfied with how things were going and slowly looked around. He then suddenly flinched. Latana, who had been anxious until a moment ago, was looking at him. She was smiling at Cal as if she was looking at something very magical. Cal could not handle such a bright smile, so he turned his head away only to make eye contact with Harol, who was also smiling at him. Harol was giving Cal a similar look that Latana had given him. Why are all these people like this? Cal could not understand why they were looking at him like this. It was at that moment. Clap, a soft clap echoed through the area. Everyone's gazes turned toward the source of the clap. Crown Prince Alberu Crossman received everyone's gazes as he started to speak. "Let us go in and have a longer chat." Prince John agreed with Alberu. "I believe we need to do so. There is too much information being thrown at me at once. My mind is a bit chaotic right now." Contrary to what he was saying, John's expression was calm. It was completely different than the anxious expression on the face of his youngest brother Pen, who was behind him. Alberu nodded his head at John and looked toward Latana. "Queen Nim, it looks like we need 3 more chairs." Latana nodded her head. "Chairs for the 3 whale tribe guests, right?" Latana looked toward Bin and started to speak. "Bin, bring a 4th chair for young Master Cal while you are at it." "Queen Nim, young Master Cal is accounted for in the 3 chairs." "Excuse me." Latana turned her head back toward Alberu as she asked. Alberu was saying that Cal was included already. Will only 2 of the whales sit down? That was what she was thinking. In fact, that was what everyone was thinking. However, a noise that proved all of their thoughts wrong soon appeared. Someone spoke in a nervous voice. Sizzle. The teleportation magic circle was starting to create sparks. Anybody trying to use this teleportation portal needed the magic incantation along with the passcode sent by the jungle's mage. That was why the mage standing in front of the magic circle was starting to get anxious. At that moment, someone put a hand on the mage's shoulder and pulled him back. The mage turned his head. It was Cal Henetus, who was looking down at him. "It is someone we invited." "Excuse me." "Izzle." The spark became even rowdier before a bright light morphed into a human silhouette. The whale tribe was not the only thing Cal had prepared. He started to smile while looking at the person slowly appearing in the magic circle. He had not seen this person for a while. He reached his hand out as the new arrival grabbed his hand to exit out of the teleportation magic circle. "Miss Cage, long time no see." "It sure has been long, young Master Nim." It was the crazy priestess Cage. She followed Cal's hand to step onto the sand. She was wearing a black priestess robe without any crest. The robe fluttered in the wind as she greeted everyone. "It is an honor to meet all of you." She was still good at pretending to be a proper priestess. Some people became nervous after seeing the arrival of an unknown priestess. However, the Breck Kingdom's side was calm. They had seen Cage before. Cal introduced the crazy priestess to the group. "She is a priestess serving the god of death." Everybody thought about one thing after hearing Cal mention the god of death. The vow of death was the only reason for a priestess of the god of death to show up to a meeting. Alberu added on once Cal stopped speaking. The things we are about to discuss are extremely confidential information. Alberu smiled before continuing to speak. That is why, rather than relying on faith or trust, shouldn't we use something more reliable? What is more reliable than putting your life on the line? Alberu was smiling brightly, but the mood in the area was quickly going down. Alberu was showing everyone that he had access to a priestess of the god of death as well as the whale tribe. That meant that everybody here needed to make a vow of death. Really? You really? Someone finally started to speak. Chief Harol looked toward Alberu and Cal as he continued to speak. I think that you really have a lot of interesting people in the Roan Kingdom. Such a fun method of doing things is definitely my style. Cal made eye contact with Harol, who was smiling brightly. Why is he looking at me? Just as Cal was having that thought, Harol turned his gaze toward Alberu and continued to speak. You are right. Life over trust. I agree with this method. I will first listen to what you have to say before deciding whether or not I will follow this method. John spoke after Harol, then took a step back. Latana was the only one left to state their opinion, so everyone turned their gazes toward her. She soon started to speak. The 3 chairs must be for the future Whale Queen Nim, the priestess, and the last one for young Master Cal. She gave Bin an order. Go make a list of all of the warriors and mages here today. Her gesture showed that she accepted the conditions of the vow of death. Alberu walked into the tent as he started to speak. Let us talk about the rest inside. After the chaos in the middle of the night, the new group was added to the table. Cal sat down on his seat and started to think. The meeting was already underway. Isn't it enough for me to just stand behind His Highness? Originally, only Watira and Cage were supposed to sit down. Of course, since Cage was a priestess, they were only going to let her sit once the other parties agreed. Why am I sitting down as well? Cal held back his question as he observed the meeting with a stoic expression. Watira and Alberu had just started to share information about the secret organization as well as the ARM faction, which was the organization's battle faction. ARM had taken control of the Eastern Continent's underworld. They were the ones responsible for the Roan Kingdom and the Church of the Sun God's terror incidents. They attacked an elf village to try to steal the branch of the World Tree. They also recruited the mermaids to try to take control of the sea route connecting the eastern and western continents. The mood in the room continued to go down as they shared these details with different pieces of evidence. Ho! Prince John could not keep his poker face up as he started to press on his temples with one hand. He started to speak almost as if he was sighing. So you are saying that such an organization is working with the Northern Alliance and the Empire, and that we didn't know about any of this, including what they have been doing on the Western continent? John was flabbergasted. How could there be such an organization, and how could we not know anything about them? He could not understand this at all. However, it was possible if the Northern Alliance and the Empire were helping ARM out. Furthermore, there was no way that an organization that took over the Eastern Continent's underworld was weak. A calm voice started to speak at that moment. What a terrible organization. We must get rid of such an organization that goes around causing magic bomb terror incidents everywhere. That was Harol's reaction. Cal turned his head toward Harol in order to see his expression before flinching. How vicious. For someone like Harol, who detested magic, something like a magic bomb terror incident should disappear from this world. Tunka would probably have a similar reaction. They'll do their part well. Cal was satisfied with Harol's response. That was why a smile was about to appear on his stoic face. However, that smile instantly disappeared once he made eye contact with Latana. Latana was looking at Cal with an extremely serious expression. Cal subconsciously started to speak after seeing her expression. Miss Lena, is there something you wish to say? It is amazing. What? A question mark appeared in Cal's mind. What nonsense was she talking about? Latana continued to speak. I heard that young Master Cal played a pivotal role in preventing the Roan Kingdom's magic bomb terror incident. You also helped the whale tribe out and even put out the fire in our jungle." Latana really found it to be amazing. She could not understand how good of a person the man with a stoic expression sitting down in front of her was after hearing the information about Arm. "You also saved the elf village? Does young Master Cal ever get any rest? How much suffering must he have gone through with that calm expression on his face to work for world peace?" Latana was thinking that this person in front of her probably had many sleepless nights because of a heavy heart. "Not only that, you worked hard to save the saint and the holy maiden." Looking past their friendship and the fact that Cal had saved the jungle, Latana truly felt that Cal was the person with the most qualifications to sit at this meeting. That was why she asked for Cal's opinion. "Young Master Cal, what do you think our next steps should be?" Everyone's gazes slowly turned toward Cal. Cal started to think as they all looked at him. "Why is she asking me? Isn't it all of your jobs to figure that out?" Of course, Cal had already decided what he was going to do. However, he could not tell them about it, nor did he have a reason to tell them. Cal looked toward the group and was about to speak when Rayon started to speak in his head. "Human, are we saving people again? Saving people is a great deed. It is very satisfying." Cal did not ignore Rayon as he usually did. A crown prince, a queen, a future queen, a chief, and a first prince. A simple noble's son's voice started to speak to this group of heavyweights. Cal's response to Latana's question about what they should do next was very calm. "Shouldn't we save the Western continent? Shouldn't we bring peace to the citizens of our continent? It would also give himself some peace and quiet to slack off at home. I believe that the people here can make that happen. Please work hard so that I don't have to do much." That was what Cal was thinking about. "Human, you are right. You really are a good person." He ignored Rayon's compliment. Cal finished speaking and looked toward Latana, who started to speak. "Really? You are right, young Master Cal. You always seem to be walking down a path of justice." Cal saw that the others were looking at him with admiration and peeked toward Alberu. He then flinched. Alberu had a warm smile on his face, but his gaze seemed to be saying, "This bastard is saying things he doesn't mean again." Cal smiled back at Alberu, who understood his true feelings. John then started to speak. "The Roan Kingdom." He stopped talking without finishing his sentence. John could not remember what he was going to say after seeing the trusting smiles on Cal and Alberu's faces as they looked at each other. However, their mutual enemy became very clear. This was the case for the others as well. Latana started to speak in a refreshing way. "We will reinforce the Whipper Kingdom with rations of food." This statement meant that the jungle was willing to work together with the group and provide something that was not related to alchemy or magic. Harol had a bright smile on his face as he started to speak. "We want to handle anything related to the magic bombs. We need to kill all of those bastards." It was a vicious answer that was fitting for someone who detested magic. Cal saw that the table was getting active again and leaned back into his chair. The meeting progressed well, with Alberu leading the way since he had the most information. The three kingdoms would secretly deliver funds and rations to the Whipper Kingdom. Furthermore, if the Empire manages to cross over into the Whipper Kingdom's borders, the jungle would immediately send a secret battle squad to help. In addition, if the Empire uses the dead mana bombs, the Roan Kingdom would provide the steps to handle the situation, while the other kingdoms would provide the funds to put those steps into action. They also discussed their support for the whales' battle in the winter, as well as the issue of the Northern Alliance. They had set the plans for everything until next spring. "Then let us make the vow of death now." Cage stood up at Alberu's statement. The meeting ended after everyone made the vow of death. Cal could see that the sun was coming up as he headed toward the teleportation portal. Iruhaben was walking behind him. Cal stood in front of the magic circle with Alberu's group and Cage. Harol was the first to leave. Sizzle. The teleportation magic circle was activated and Harol started to disappear. Cal, who was waiting by the side, made eye contact with Harol, who started to smile. "Young Master Calnim, see you after our victory." Harol disappeared before Cal managed to respond. Alberu looked toward Cal and asked, "He wants to see you again?" Alberu got his response through Cal's indifferent expression. He chuckled before moving to stand on the teleportation magic circle with Cal. The two soon arrived at the Ubar territory. Alberu had something to say before they went their separate ways. "Looks like you have nothing to do until winter. Get some rest while waiting for the good news of their victory." Cal had no issues responding back, as it was already obvious what he had planned. "That was my plan, Your Highness." However, Cal felt iffy after seeing Alberu's smiling face. Alberu was thinking that it had been a while since Cal had said something unbelievable like this as he said goodbye. Of course, make sure to get some rest. However, Cal could not do that. Cal frowned while looking at Tunka, who had his face right up to the video communication device. I can do it." These energetic shouts could still be heard outside Cal's window. It was already fall, but the voices did not seem tired at all. Cal needed to see Tunka's ugly face to hear the first bit of news since fall had arrived. "What is it?" Cal had been getting daily updates on the Whipper Kingdom through Alberu and the information organization that Ron was leading. The Whipper Kingdom was doing pretty well against the Empire. The Empire did not reveal all of their cards, such as the dead mana bomb. This was only possible because, contrary to the belief that the poor Whipper Kingdom would eventually run out of funds, they were able to keep their soldiers equipped and fed. But it is moving too slow. That was the last piece of information Cal had heard. That was why he did not care to chat with Tunka right now. "I wanted you to be the first to know." Tunka then added on, "We've won about halfway." Cal's expression changed. "We managed to take over a castle." Q ha 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 ha. Tunka stepped back from the screen to laugh. This crazy bastard. Cal could then see that only Tunka's face was clean. The rest of his body was covered in blood. He could also see a lot of corpses behind Tunka. He had piled up the enemy's corpses before calling him to share the news. He really was a crazy bastard. I also did as you asked. Cal found it odd that Tunka would say something like that, like I asked. Yes. I didn't throw the injured soldiers away. I brought them with me. Did Tunka lose his mind? Cal was shocked at what Tunka was telling him. It was weird that he was doing something that he would not normally do. Tunka continued to speak with a proud look on his face. The strong need to know how to take care of the weak. Is this really Tunka? Cal was seriously debating if this was the real Tunka. However, he pushed that thought to the side after hearing what Tunka had to say as well as seeing the worried look on Tunka's face. But I think that it will be difficult to heal them. Cal had an idea about what was going on. Even if the Whipper Kingdom now had more funds, they could not buy expensive potions to heal all of their soldiers. They also do not have enough priests. No churches had a strong influence on the Whipper Kingdom, as churches were a faction of magic. That was why they were lacking priests for the war. Furthermore, the church considered the citizens of the Whipper Kingdom to be barbarians as they believed in nature, but not in a god. This led to the churches not sending any priests over to the Whipper Kingdom. The fact that the Whipper Kingdom had any healers was amazing because the mages had attacked all those with healing powers in the past. Cal could see the sorrow in Tunka's face. We do not have enough healers. We cannot use a lot of potions after only achieving a half victory like this. We only have so many healers and we don't have any priests. Cal thought about two people at that moment. Both of these people were currently doing nothing at his place. They were the crazy priestess and the half-saint. There was also one more person. There was the elf chilling in Iruhaben's lair. Cal started to contemplate things with his arms crossed. Each of those three would be able to do more than multiple average priests put together. Rayon started to speak into Cal's mind. Human, are we saving people? There was an odd sense of expectation in Rayon's voice. However, Cal first asked Tunka a question that was on his mind. What do you mean by half victory? You either win or lose. Why would it be only half? Tunka put on an awkward expression at Cal's question. The enemy ran away after leaving their castle behind. So then you took over the castle. Tunka managed to take over one castle. We did take it over, but we cannot enter. What the hell? Tunka scratched his head after seeing Cal's questioning gaze before turning the screen to the other side. Cal could see something red through the screen. Cal could tell why Tunka had contacted him in the middle of the corpses. He could not enter the castle, so he found somewhere that the soldiers would not be looking. Rayon's voice echoed in Cal's mind. "Human, it is burning brightly." There was a raging fire. The pillar of fire was so high that you could not even see the castle. Ahem, this fire suddenly started and we cannot put it out. You can't put it out? Yes. That is why I currently have the soldiers surrounding the pillar of fire. What is amazing is that the pillar of fire does not extend past the castle. It seems like a wall protecting the castle from us. Tunka shared his honest feelings with his friend. He felt a bit better after telling Cal about it. Compared to when he was fighting people on his own, there was a lot to think about and a lot of things to take care of during a war. The pillar of fire was one of those problems. I cannot tell what the Empire did, but I will definitely take care, Tunka stopped talking once he saw Cal's face. However, he then asked with concern, unlike his normal self, "Is something wrong?" Cal was frowning. Cal was ignoring Tunka and just staring at the fire through the screen. An excited Rayon started to speak in his mind. "Human, haven't we seen that fire before?" Cal also recalled the pillar of fire he had seen more than a year ago. It burned down section 1 of the jungle without spreading and did not go out, even when it rained. Damn it. Cal touched the necklace on his neck. It was the necklace with the dominating water. Cal started to frown even more. "It looks like I have to go put out that fire." Chapter 142. Isn't it a pity? Been a while since we did a video teaser. Click here. Not a tear-jerker this time. Teaser who? Cal let out a sigh. Tunka responded immediately to the sigh. No need to worry about it too much. "Did you forget who I am? I am Tunka. I will find a way so you don't need to worry about me. Spit out your coordinates." "What coordinates?" Tunka could see the complicated expression on Cal's face. Cal then started to speak in an annoyed tone. "Tell me the coordinates of your current location. I will head over." Why? Cal became extremely annoyed at Tunka's question. No, he's right. Even I don't know why I have to go there, but it's not like I cannot go. The Whipper Kingdom needed to take control of this castle in order to reduce the power of the Empire. Although I don't know what the Empire is thinking. Cal didn't know why the Empire would do this and relinquish the castle. The Empire could be doing this in order to focus more of their forces on the other 2 castles that Tunka's side was aiming for. Or they could be doing this so that they can ambush Tunka's forces while they try to put out the fire. He could figure things out once he got there. Cal looked toward Tunka, who was blinking his eyes in confusion. "Why? Someone needs to bring over some priests and put out that fire." "You're going to do that?" Tunka asked with confusion before shutting up. There was no way that Cal Henitus, the man who was looking at him with a serious expression right now, would be joking about something like that. "Yes, if it is you, I know that you wouldn't say things you don't mean. So hurry up and spit out your coordinates so that I can get there." "I'll go quickly and hurry back after putting out the fire." That was what Cal was telling himself. Tunka watched Cal pick up a pen and paper to write down the coordinates. Tunka was feeling odd. Even if Cal Henitus had priests among his people and knew how to put out the fire, there was no reason to come over. The war was not yet over and nobody had given up. It was just a continuous standstill. That was why this battlefield could become dangerous at any moment. Tunka could not understand why Cal would have no qualms about coming to such a place. At the same time, he could understand Cal's current predicament. He's too nice. Tunka confirmed his opinion of Cal once more before starting to speak. "I will tell the mage from the Roan Kingdom that you are coming. We will install a teleportation magic circle and give you the proper coordinates. Fine, just hurry up." "All right. It's been a while since I've seen you in person." Cal nodded his head and started to speak. "Ah, by the way." Tunka was smiling and telling Cal to say what was on his mind. Cal didn't want to look at Tunka's ugly smiling face, so he turned away from the screen as he continued to speak. "I'll be in a disguise." "What? I'm hanging up now." Click. Cal ended the call. There was nothing else he needed to say to Tunka right now. He just needed to find out the coordinates of the teleportation magic circle later. He got up from the chair. Rayon appeared from the air and flew over to Cal's side. "Human, what do you mean by disguise?" Rayon's round eyes were sparkling with curiosity. However, Cal ignored him and opened the door to head down to the 4th floor. He then knocked on the innermost room on the 4th floor. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. A clear voice answered from inside the room. Cal turned the door knob to open the door. Click. He could see in the room as soon as the door opened. Young Master Nim? The Saint Jack jumped up to greet Cal. The innermost room and the room next to it on the 4th floor were protected by all sorts of protection and alarm magic. These were Hannah and Jack's rooms. Young Master Nim, have you been well? The crazy priestess Cage also jumped up and greeted Cal as if she was a mercenary. Cal quietly observed the two of them before starting to speak. Saint Nim, is Miss Hannah currently training? Ah, yes. She is learning how to handle the darkness attribute from Miss Mary. Really? Yes. I heard that Miss Rosalind and Mr. Choi Han were with them as well. I see. The crazy priestess Cage found it odd that Cal opened the door in a hurried manner but seemed to be very calm. Maybe Cal realized what she was thinking as he turned his head toward her. Cage flinched. Miss Cage. Yes, yes. Will you continue to stay in this villa? She was currently staying at Cal's villa because the god of death kept showing up and whining in her dreams whenever she tried to leave. A god you cannot see whining in your head is extremely annoying. That was why Cage ended up staying here and happened to make friends with the saint of the Church of the Sun God, even though they were serving gods on opposite ends of the spectrum. She answered Cal's question. I wish to do so if it is okay with you, young Master Nim. Jack added on from the side. It has been wonderful having Cage Nim here. If it is okay with you, young Master Nim, I hope that Miss Cage can stay here longer. To Cage's existence made it possible for Jack to suppress his power of purification. She allowed Jack to approach Mary and his sister without any issues. Of course, he still couldn't even shake hands with his sister. But that was not important compared to having his sister being alive and well. Cal slowly nodded his head. I am happy having you here as well, Miss Cage. That is why Cal spoke to both the half-saint and the crazy priestess. Let's go save some people. Excuse me, the saint asked with confusion while Cage asked her question calmly. Where are we headed? Cal smiled at Cage's response before answering her question. The battlefield. This time Cage was confused as well. However, Cal looked toward the two of them before saying what he needed to say, and let's disguise ourselves. Excuse me? I'm not sure what you mean, young Master Cal. Rayon, who was trying to peek into the room from behind Cal, started to shout. Are they disguising themselves too? Rayon's comments made Cage flinch as she asked. Are you disguising yourself as well, young Master Cal? Yes. I'm calling it a disguise, but we will all only do small things like changing the color of our hair. Hair color, you as well, young Master Cal, Cal answered back. Yes, something that makes me look holy. Ho, what? Cage looked toward him with disbelief, but Cal just gave Rayon an order. Go tell Miss Rosalind and Choi Han to come here. Will they be wearing disguises as well? Maybe. Bring them here first. I got it, human. Rayon flew toward Rosalind excitedly. Cal let out a sigh after seeing Rayon flying off like a missile. Cal had no choice but to wear a disguise. Tunka's soldiers had already seen Cal before. The Whipper Kingdom was currently in a war against the Magoru Empire. Although there may be none of the Empire's forces there right now, things would get complicated if a noble from the Roan Kingdom showed up at that location. Excuse me, young Master Nim. What is it, Saint Nim? I recommend white for a holy color. Cal turned his head toward Jack. Jack seemed to be happy that he could make a recommendation for Cal. Cal looked toward the face that seemed to be waiting for a response and started to speak. I will keep that in mind. Egu, my difficult life. Cal was having the same thoughts Iruhaben frequently had while dealing with Rayon. The scent of blood and burning flesh tickled his nose. However, it didn't do anything to faze him after being in this battlefield for so long. However, a new source of stimulation quickly approached him. Tunka looked toward the teleportation magic circle they installed in secret away from the rest of the soldiers. A total of 5 people had appeared. Tunka looked toward the man standing in the center with a blank expression as he started to mumble. What the? The man in the center put on his trademark twisted smile as he pushed back his hair. The long hair that was close to pure white followed his hand. Cal Henitus was wearing a white priest outfit without any crest, and his hair was just as white as his clothes. The white hair looked like it was faintly glowing, making it look silver as well. Cal ignored Tunka's confused expression and instead looked toward Chief Harol. "How do I look?" "I don't think anyone will recognize you, young Master Nim." Harol responded and looked at the mask in Cal's hand. It was something that would cover only around his eyes. "That mask will definitely make it so nobody can recognize you." Cal, who now also had blue eyes, smiled gently toward Harol. Harol couldn't help but let out a gasp at Cal's smile. "You look like a real priest." Then it was a success. Rayon, who had followed the coordinates to teleport himself in advance, was curled up in a corner of the tent in his invisible state. He started to speak into Cal's mind after hearing Harol's comment. "It really is my masterpiece." "Human, you look like the real saint." Rayon had been in charge of everyone's disguises this time. Rosalind and Choi had traded colors with each other. Rosalind had black hair and black eyes, while Choi had red hair and red eyes. The crazy priestess and the saint had their hair dyed to the common brown color. They all had masks in their hands as well. Cal asked Harol a question. "Where are the patients? Are you planning on starting right away?" Cal put on the white mask and opened up his arms as he started to speak. "Going to find the people in pain, going to help the people in need. That is truly the will of the Lord." Harol scoffed at how holy Cal looked and sounded before responding back sincerely. "I will guide you to them." The Whipper soldiers were looking at the pillar of fire with concern. This was especially the case for the soldiers creating a barricade around the pillar. It had been raining all night, but this fire was not shrinking at all. That oddness instilled fear in people. Trying to take even one step closer to the pillar made them feel intense heat. One of the soldiers looked around before whispering to his friend. "You really think the Empire is responsible for this fire?" "How would I know?" "If they know how to make such a fire, won't we all burn to death too?" "Bad, what nonsense are you saying?" The friend scolded the soldier in shock. He was glad that there were no higher-ups around them. However, the friend saw the soldier's expression and started to frown. The soldier had said that after shivering in fear for a while. "No, I know it is nonsense, but I'm feeling uncomfortable after seeing the Empire run away after leaving this fire behind." The war was dragging on, and they now had to guard this weird pillar of fire. For this soldier, who was a citizen of the Whipper Kingdom and hated magic, this pillar of fire reminded him of the magic used by the mages in the past. "Bad. Our commander Nim still brought all of the injured soldiers with him. He even gave a bit of those precious potions to the ones with serious injuries." The soldier relaxed a bit after hearing his friend speak. Commander Tunka did not throw away the injured this time. It was different than how he had acted during the civil war in the Whipper Kingdom. However, his expression soon stiffened up again. "But they are all dying." They didn't have enough potions, and there was a limit to what a doctor without healing abilities could do. It was painful listening to the moans of the soldiers who were dying without a chance to return home. "Why are you saying such negative things? The Commander Nim and Chief Nims will find a way for us soon." The soldier put on a bitter smile after hearing his friend's response. He had participated in the war due to his anger about magic, but he was starting to see the reality of the situation as time dragged on. A doubtful voice came out of his mouth. "You really thigh, huh?" However, he could not finish his sentence. He saw a group wearing white heading toward the center of the formation. There were a total of 5 people wearing white masks and priest outfits heading into the tent with the injured alongside Commander Tunka. They were naturally Cal's group. Cal looked around as he headed toward the tent with the injured soldiers. The atmosphere was very heavy. "Human, do you see that pillar of fire? Are we getting rid of that? It will destroy the castle as well if you do it like last time." This was the Maple Castle, one of the 3 main castles at the border of the Magoru Empire and the Whipper Kingdom. "Break it? Why would I break such a precious thing?" Cal was planning on calmly taking care of business this time. He continued to look around until he made eye contact with one of the soldiers. It was the soldier guarding the medical tent. Cal smiled gently at the soldier and started to ask, "May we enter?" "Excuse me?" The soldier became anxious at Cal's distinguished air. At that moment, Tunka started to speak. Lift the flap. Yes, yes, sir. The soldier, who made eye contact with Cal, as well as the soldier standing next to him, quickly lifted the flap. The smell of medicinal herbs and the stench of injuries started to flow out. Cal slowly entered into the tent. The soldier mumbled the thought that came into his head as he watched the 5 people enter. Priest Nim. The soldier could see that the 2 people walking in behind the white-haired priest. One had a black aura in her hand, while the other had a golden aura in his hand. They both had the power of healing. The tent that was full of the aura of death and pain slowly started to change as the patients and the doctors all turned their gazes toward the 5 priests. Cal started to speak. Hello, everyone. We are here following the will of the heavens to help all of you who are working hard to fight. Ah, someone let out a gasp. At that moment, Cal lifted his hand up. Let us get started. The crazy priestess Cage and the Saint Jack moved in opposite directions to the left and right. Rosalind and Choi Han followed behind the 2 of them. Jack put his hand on a patient's arm. The injury started to quickly heal while glowing in a gold color. My arm. The patient started to tear up and cheer while looking at his arm healing. Choi Han and Rosalind took potions out of their respective magic bags to assist the 2 priests. Cal observed them for a bit before making eye contact with Tunka. 3 Tunka started to speak with tears in his eyes. You even brought so many potions, really. Thank you very much. Cal felt the gazes of the soldiers and doctors focus on him as he responded back in a dignified manner. Alberu had prepared the potions for him. Cal recalled the conversation he had with Alberu before heading over. You're going to put the fire out like you did in the jungle. You're going to be wearing the secret organization. You're going to be wearing the arm outfit while doing it. Cal, Rosalind, and Choi Han were all wearing the updated arm outfit underneath their priest outfits. Alberu had laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. I'm sure the Empire is hiding somewhere observing the Whipper forces. It's going to be a great way to cause some chaos between the Empire and the secret organization. I will personally support you in this endeavor, so go act like a proper priest. Cal looked around the tent where the healing had commenced. Isn't it a pity to only put out the fire after I had to come all the way here anyway? Chapter 143. Isn't it a pity? 2. However, putting out the fire was a task for some other day. Cal had left the entrance of the tent open on purpose. It was so that the soldiers could see inside as they walked by. Human. Cal could hear Rayon's voice in his mind. Cal did not pay attention as he headed toward the people with light injuries. You have a lot of bruises. Priest Nim. The soldier, who was sitting in the corner of the tent, because he only had light injuries, answered in shock. Cal took out a potion and wet a piece of cloth. He then started to press down on the areas around the bruise with the cloth. The light bruises slowly started to disappear. Thank you very much. The soldier could see the white-haired priest gently smiling at him. The priest did not say anything else before walking over to another person and healing their light injuries. Human, you're such a good person. Cal ignored Rayon as usual as he used potions to heal even the soldiers with the lightest of injuries. The soldiers bowed with gratitude toward the white-haired priest, who did not care about using potions on even the lightest injuries. Cal received their thanks and started to think. Free potions feel the best when you use them without any hesitation. Cal was using the potions that Alberu had given him without holding back. Maybe it was because he was using someone else's potions, but it was quite entertaining. Thank you very much, Priest Nim. Cal started to smile while thinking about how he was using Alberu's money. He responded to the thanks in a manner that normal priests would respond. It was nothing. It is a priest's job to look after the injured. Cal took care of the soldiers with light injuries around him before moving toward the rest of his group. Jack and Cage were by the people who were close to dying. They're working hard. The Saint, Jack, was sweating profusely as he looked after the patients. The patient Jack was currently healing was close to dying because of the deep cut on his side. Pat. Gold light continued to glow in Jack's hand as he healed the soldier's injury. Cal observed Jack and started to think. His healing skills are top-notch. The crazy priestess Cage was a talented priestess. However, an aura that she could not compare with was coming out of Jack right now. It was only natural that everyone's gazes would be focused on Jack. Cal looked toward this with satisfaction. He seems good enough to use against the Empire later. Cal got excited while thinking about how they could cause chaos in the Empire by doing the same thing in the Empire while wearing this white priest outfit and white mask. Ugh, ugh. The soldier, who was moaning and close to death, slowly started to regain color in his face. Jack finally moved his hand away from the patient's side. Ha! Jack plopped onto a chair nearby and started to take deep breaths. Cal slightly clenched his fists after seeing the patient's side. The large wound that was rotting and made the man's organs visible was now completely fine without even a scar. Ho! Wow! The Whipper Kingdom's people could not hide their shock and admiration. Cal approached Jack, who was breathing heavily. He then took Jack to a corner of the tent and sat him down. "Are you okay?" Jack smiled in response to Cal's question. He brushed the sweat off of his forehead with his shaking hand as he started to speak. "Young Master Nim." "Yes. I think it was the right decision to follow you here." What the heck is he suddenly talking about? Cal did not understand as he looked toward Jack. He then flinched. Jack was smiling brightly. He seemed to be happy. He started to speak in a quiet voice that only Cal could hear. "When I was with the church, my life revolved around healing the important people. I have never seen people who truly needed the hand of God. But now, Jack's eyes were suddenly full of energy again. I finally realized what it is I have to do. Young Master Nim, can I tell you a funny story?" "What is it?" Jack clenched and then unclenched his fist. His hands stopped shaking. "My healing abilities." Jack finally thought he could understand the will of his god. "Young Master Cal, my healing abilities seem to be getting stronger." Wow. Cal was amazed as soon as he heard what Jack had to say. His healing abilities were getting stronger even though he could already heal someone who was at death's door. He really is a saint. He was a real saint. Cal patted Jack, who seemed to be very happy that he was able to heal people, on the shoulder before encouraging him further. "I have faith in your abilities, Jack Nim." Jack clenched his fists at Cal's comment. He was able to save his younger sister thanks to Cal. He had come to this place with Cal because that person had said he needed help. However, what he was doing here was saving someone once again. Jack lifted his head and looked toward Cal, who was taking care of patients in front of him. Cal's gaze seemed to be more serious than ever before. "I should have lived like this from the start." Jack felt a sense of regret, but held it back as he stood up and headed back to the patients. Cal looked around the tent after seeing that Jack was returning to treating patients. He still had the same gaze that made Jack regret his past life. This was the thought going on in his head. "Looks like we'll be up all night." There were a couple other patient tents as well, however. Cal did not need to do much even if they were pulling an all-nighter. He handed potions to Cage and Jack. It was the only thing he could do for these two who will suffer the most throughout the night. The next morning, the Whipper Kingdom's soldiers' gazes were focused on the priests who had spent all night treating the patients. The treated patients were coming out cheering as they were moved to other tents, while a new batch of seriously injured patients was being moved to the tent. And now, another patient was crying as they showed their gratitude. "Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Really, truly, thank you very much. It was nothing. We just did what we needed to do." The soldier, whose leg might have needed to be amputated, was crying while holding Jack's hand. Jack seemed to be getting emotional as well, as he was tightly holding the soldier's hand back. This type of scene had been repeated multiple times already. Tunka, who saw this for the first time as he headed into the tent, flinched. Harol went up to stand next to him. "Commander Nim?" "Yes." Tunka looked toward the healed soldier with an odd expression. He had realized that the atmosphere among the soldiers was much brighter this morning. It was a different type of liveliness than when they would achieve a victory in a battle. "Commander Nim, welcome." The familiar voice spoke to him as if they did not know each other. It was Cal. Tunka looked at Cal, who was posing as a priest, and was starting to approach him before looking around at the rest of Cal's group in the tent. All of them had pulled all-nighters and were sweating hard as they continued to heal the patients. Tunka made eye contact with Cal, who approached him and started to whisper. "Tonight, I'm putting the fire out, so bring all of the files." Cal's tone was cold, but Tunka started to smile. "All right, I got it." After not sleeping a wink last night, Cal did not like Tunka's smiling face. He quickly turned around and walked away. Of course, Cal was fine even after not getting any sleep thanks to the vitality of the heart. "Thank you." Cal ignored Tunka's voice behind him. That night was the night of the new moon. Cal stood on top of Maple Castle as he looked down. It is completely dark other than this pillar of fire and the lights in the base. The fire shone even brighter without the moon. Cal recalled what Harald had told him as he handed him the report. "Is there really nobody inside of the castle?" "It is. Don't you know that I have 3 mages with me? Some of my trusted subordinates, and I entered the castle with their magic to verify. 3 mages, one each from Roan, Breck, and the jungle, were currently disguised as Tunka and Harald's servants for video communication and emergency situations." Cal had looked toward Harald, who had no issue with using mages, with amazement. Harald, who felt Cal's gaze, had responded back like this. "Sometimes you have to sacrifice the small stuff for the greater good. In order to get rid of all magic in the future, I need to use my enemies to my advantage as well." Cal ignored the gaze of this opportunistic, yet crazy bastard. He only focused on the information Harald handed him. In addition to nobody being there were no useful items nor even magic devices. It was just an empty castle. The mages verified that there were no magic devices. Yes, there was no trace of mana at all. It meant that the castle did not have the general magic devices used on the Western continent. It might be possible that there were variations hidden in the castle. Cal started to speak. "Let's go down." "Yes, Cal Nim. Right away." Choi Han and Rosalind responded back while Rayon started to speak in his mind. "I just have to let you down on the top of the castle." Cal's group stealthily and quietly landed on top of the castle that was surrounded by the pillar of fire. The invisibility spell around them was removed as soon as they landed. The soldiers guarding the pillar of fire did not notice Cal's group's actions. This was because Tunka and Harald had lowered the number of soldiers standing guard. "It's hot." Cal shared his sentiments as they stood on the terrace on top of the castle. It was hot due to the fire. Cal looked toward Choi Han and Rosalind. Choi Han was rubbing the embroidery on his outfit. It was 1 red star with 5 white stars around it. This upgraded fake secret organization outfit was still not a perfect replica of the original. However, Hans and Beecrox had used their skills to make it look more legitimate. "Young Master Cal, what is the plan?" Cal responded without hesitation to Rosalind's question. "First, we will go down through the castle while looking for any magic devices. Miss Rosalind, you and Rayon should be better than those other mages. We may also be able to figure out the Empire's plan." Choi Han and Rosalind nodded their heads. Cal looked at the blueprints of the castle that Harald had handed him while continuing to speak. The castle also had 1 underground floor. "We will also look for any treasures or precious items that may be hidden." The 2 people flinched. Rayon appeared in the air and started to shout. "I knew it." "Human, I knew you would say that." Rayon seemed to be excited. Choi Han looked toward Rosalind only to see that she was smiling. "Not money nor food, but treasure, right?" "Yes, Miss Rosalind, I knew you would get it. They would leave the money and food for the soldiers." Cal was looking for more precious things. "I will work hard." "Yes, I will leave it to you, Miss Rosalind." "Human, what about me?" "You as well." Choi Han watched Cal, Rosalind, and Rayon chatting as they started to head down with a blank expression before following behind them. Cal started to investigate this Maple Castle. However, there was not much to investigate. There have been no reactions until now." "Is that so?" "Yes." Cal's group gathered at the 1st floor hall without having any luck. "Well, let's still go look in the basement." Rosalind nodded her head. Forget treasures. Cal and Rosalind were now just trying to figure out the Empire's plan. The Empire just started this fire and left. That made no sense. That would be too much of a waste. Rosalind started to speak. "Shall we head to the basement now?" "No. Let's verify the condition of the pillar of fire before we go." They could see the fire up close because they were on the 1st floor. The fire was in the shape of a pillar approximately 7 meters in diameter. That was why the soldiers could not see Cal even when he opened the castle door. Cal headed to the entrance of the first-floor hall. "Young Master Nim, you can see the fire as soon as you open the first-floor door." He recalled what Harol had told me. "Young Master Cal, be careful." "Cal Nim, I will open the door." Along with Rosalind's concerned statement, Choi Han stepped forward and headed toward the door. Choi Han stood in front of a door that was half the size of the large main entrance and looked toward Cal. "Open it." Choi Han opened the door at Cal's command. Cal slowly started to be able to see the fire through the opening door. He gulped. Crackle and intense heat entered the castle along with the sound of the crackling fire. "Cal Nim, you should probably step back. It is very hot." Cal shook his head at Choi Han's statement and took one step closer to the door. It was hot, but still bearable thanks to the vitality of the heart. Cal's expression turned serious. "It is stronger than the last one." He thought that it would be weaker, because it encompassed a smaller area than the jungle's Section 1 fire. However, he could tell that this pillar was radiating a stronger level of heat than the fire in the jungle. A large drenching is difficult this time. Cal, who did not plan on making it hail again, started to frown. At that moment, some wind blew in from the door. Crackle, a wave of heat brushed by Cal's face. It was so hot that it made it difficult for Cal to breathe. Cal tried to step back as getting burnt would hurt, even with the vitality of the heart. It was at that moment, "Are you trying to sacrifice yourself?" Cal stopped moving backward as a voice started to speak in his mind. "Will you sacrifice yourself to protect them?" It was the voice of the Super Rock's previous owner. Why is he suddenly talking? Cal had not paid any attention to the Super Rock power ever since he received the Earth Affinity. It was because he had no need and no desire to use it at all. Cal's mind became complicated. Someone grabbed his arm at that moment. Cal Nim. Cal coldly responded back to Choi Han, who grabbed his arm while he was contemplating. "What?" "That." Choi Han pointed in a direction with a confused expression. Cal's gaze moved, following Choi Han's finger as he continued to speak. "Rayon is acting weird." Now that he thought about it, Rayon had not said anything when he was getting closer to the fire. The usual Rayon would have been nagging at him to stop. Rayon had not said anything since they arrived on the first floor. Cal finally managed to see Rayon after he followed Choi Han's finger. "What the?" A confused voice came out of Cal's mouth. "Sniff. Sniff." Rayon had his face buried on the ground as he continued to sniff. Cal looked toward Rayon while wondering what was going on. Rayon suddenly turned his head and the two of them made eye contact. The black dragon pounded on the ground. "I can smell it. I can smell it." "Smell what?" "It is the same scent that was near the black swamp." The black swamp. Cal wondered what Rayon was saying. However, he soon figured it out. The black swamp. That was the place that he had found the dragon bones and the dominating aura. It was also the location that the secret organization had given the mermaids the dead mana. Rayon looked toward Cal and started to speak. "I smell that dead dragon's dead mana." Cal started to smile. The saint and the holy maiden had said that the dead mana bomb was in liquid form. He had wondered where the Empire had gotten that liquid from, but it seemed like some of the dead mana from the black swamp had been given to the Empire as well. Cal started to speak. "We're heading down to the basement now." There was something that Cal wanted in the basement of the Maple Castle, Chapter 144. Isn't it a pity? 3. Harol suspected that the basement was used as a prison and as a dwelling for the slaves. Clack, clack. Cal's group did not say much as they headed down the stone staircase and into the basement. There was only one thing on all of their minds right now. A dead mana bomb? Rosalind let out a sigh. Clack. Cal stopped on the last step to go down into the basement. "Miss Rosalind, please shine some light into the basement." "Got it." Rosalind created some light orbs and sent them floating into different areas of the basement. The orbs soon lit up the entire area. It seems to be a prison. Cal nodded his head at Choi Han's comment. The area was full of iron cages. Although there were many paths available to take, they all seemed to lead to cages. Choi Han looked at the simple yet complicated layout and started to speak. "It looks like a maze." Cal Nim, should I go down first? Do you want to do? Excuse me. Choi Han could see that Cal was smiling. Cal motioned for Choi Han to stay still before looking to his side. Sniff. Sniff. Rayon was still sniffing. Although he did not look like a majestic dragon as he did that, Cal just continued to let Rayon do his thing. Rayon made eye contact with Cal after sniffing for a bit longer. Rayon stopped sniffing and tilted his head in confusion after seeing Cal's warm gaze. At that moment, Cal pointed to the basement and started to speak to Rayon. Rayon, go. Rayon, who blankly blinked his eyes a few times, finally nodded his head. All right, human, just follow me. Sniff. Sniff. Rayon started to sniff again. It was difficult to detect dead mana unless you had the darkness attribute. The only reason that Rayon was able to do so was because the dead mana was the dead dragon's mana, something that Rayon was used to. Rayon looked behind him only to see that Cal was not following him. Cal was leaning on the wall of the staircase with his arms crossed. Let me know when you find them all. Shoo, shoo. Rayon nodded his head at Cal's shooing motion and started to move. Choi Han watched this while fidgeting. At that moment, Rosalind used levitation magic to lift herself slightly off the ground. Young Master Cal, I can follow behind Rayon Nim if I do this, right? Yes. Enjoy your trip. Rosalind smiled before chasing behind Rayon. She was using small mana orbs to verify the route that Rayon took in order to make sure that it was okay. Choi Han, who watched this for a moment, finally started to speak. Cal Nim, are you worried that Rayon might miss a bomb and we might get hurt? Is that why you are making me stay here? Cal did not respond as he continued to observe the area that was continuing to light up with Rosalind's mana orbs. Choi Han started to smile and stood next to Cal as if he was a guard. His tone is rude, but he's always looking out for everyone. As Choi Han was thinking that, Cal had a different thought in his head. Not doing anything while making others work is really the best. Rosalind and Rayon were working while he got to rest here. However, that moment of rest did not last very long. I found it. The center of the basement, the location that all of these winding paths connected to, was where Rayon was shouting from. You can follow me. Rosalind, who had walked all the way back from the center of the basement, guided them to Rayon. Cal could see Rayon pointing to the ground with his front paw when he entered this factory-like section. This is where it is coming from. It is very strong. Cal looked down at the ground. Contrary to the cages that were made of iron, the ground of this area was made of stone slates. He started to speak. It looks like we need to lift these slates up. Cal turned his head. Choi Han, who was looking down at the slates, turned his head as well. Cal, Rosalind, and Rayon were all looking at him. Choi Han took out the sword at his side and pulled up both of his sleeves. I will lift it up. Choi Han said that as he reached toward the slates. At that moment, Rayon started to speak, but I can do it faster. Black mana headed toward the large slates. A total of 4 slates were covered by the black mana. Clunk, clunk, the slates slowly lifted up. Choi Han flinched. Cal watched as the 4 slates moved without any issues before he then started to speak. You really are great and mighty. Rayon chuckled and looked toward Choi Han. Choi Han sighed before looking toward Rosalind. Rosalind, it looks like we need to lift the dirt up a bit as well. Ah, I'll do that. Cal stepped in between Choi Han and Rosalind. He activated a weak version of the sound of the wind. A light wind brushed by where the slates used to rest. A bit of the dirt was moved aside in a simple manner. Choi Han turned his gaze to the side. Cal started to frown after seeing Choi Han's gaze. Why are you looking at me like that? It is nothing. Choi Han slowly walked over and picked up his sword. Rosalind chuckled quietly before helping Cal. Although it was only moving a small amount of dirt at a time, it was not difficult. It was just boring. Cal continued to move the dirt little by little as he started to think. Why did the super rock do that? Cal recalled what the scary giant cobblestone had said a moment earlier. Are you trying to sacrifice yourself? That statement made Cal start to worry. Why? It was because he sensed some urging in the profound voice of the super rock. Cal was not a masochist. Hearing the super rock telling him to sacrifice himself gave Cal the chills. I really can't get a grasp of how the super rock power works. He had never used this power since he got it. He also had no plans to use it. Even that ancient book that described the super rock did not describe the power. All it said was, the super rock was strong. He put his own body in front to protect everyone. Information like that was all that the book had. Cal thought for a moment before coming to a decision. Just ignore it. He just had to ignore the voice as crazy ramblings. Sacrifice myself. Why should I? Cal had no thoughts about doing that. Human, Rayon called out to Cal at that moment. Ah. Cal immediately deactivated the sound of the wind. The item he had been waiting for was finally visible. He also started to hear a noise. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. It was the sound of a ticking clock. Rayon started to shout. This is it. This is definitely where the scent is coming from. Rosalind crouched down and started to investigate the item. It was an orb made of thin glass. She saw a lot of foreign devices surrounding the orb. However, the liquid inside of the glass orb was what caught her attention. The orb was full of a black liquid. This is weird. She gulped as she started to speak. She is right. It is weird. What is this liquid? Rayon, who had landed next to Rosalind, looked inside the pit and started to frown. He could see about 10 bombs with the black liquid at the center. Next to that was a magic bomb that he had never seen before, along with an orb that was full of a purple liquid. What was this purple liquid? Rosalind and Rayon both looked toward the purple liquid. Rayon was the first to speak. This does not seem to be something natural. I will need to break the orb and take a closer look to figure out what it is. You're right. Rayon Nim, we definitely need to research this. However, contrary to what they were saying, the mage and the dragon seemed to have an idea about what it was. The two looked at each other before looking up at Cal. Cal, who made eye contact with them, started to speak. It must be fire. As expected, the mage and the dragon did not disagree. Rosalind started to speak. The Empire created the Pillar of Fire, but in the end, their goal seemed to have been to pull Tunka and the Whipper Kingdom into the castle. She's right. Even my great and mighty self thinks that the Empire was planning on using this dead mana bomb and the Pillar of Fire to blow this purple liquid up and kill everyone. It makes sense. The fire would burn everything black, thus making it easy to hide the evidence of their use of dead mana bombs. It's true. After not finding anything in the castle, Harald would have no reason not to enter. Once he does, this castle will go boom, boom. Rayon drew a large circle with his front paw. They'll blow up and die. You're right. Even if they do not all die, the Empire will have succeeded if some people end up being poisoned by the dead mana. As for Tunka's side that is deemed to not have any mages, they would need to escape from the Pillar of Fire while poisoned. That is difficult for anybody else other than that idiot Tunka. Rayon stopped there and looked up at Cal. Tap, tap. Rayon lightly tapped on Cal's leg with his paw. Cal caressed Rayon's round head. Good job, hee. Rayon snickered and looked proud. I really am great and intelligent. I am great even if my first growth phase is slow. Yes, Cal played along. The sound continued on even at that moment. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Cal's gaze headed toward the magic bomb. This was not your average magic bomb. A new device was hanging on top of the magic bomb. This device had the orb of raging mana hanging on it. The time was slowly going down. 27:13:44. Rosalind started to speak. I think that the alchemists and the mages developed this magic bomb together. It seems to be a way to store the mage's mana in advance in order to set the magic bomb to go off at a predetermined time. Magic bombs had the issue of needing a mage to set them off. They put a very faint amount of mana in the orb so that only a high-grade mage would be able to notice it. Although the mana was raging inside of the orb, there was only a small amount. Of course, based on the amount of mana in the orb, the strength of the magic bomb seems to be pretty weak. It seems to be only strong enough to break a boulder the size of an adult's head. However, this new magic bomb in front of them did not need to be any stronger than that. No matter what, it will have enough strength to set off the dead mana bomb. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. 27:12:07. Rosalind, Rayon, and Choi-Hen looked toward Cal. Cal was smiling with a happy expression on his face. Let's pack them all up for now. Rayon quickly started to put them into his alternate dimension as if he had expected Cal's response. Rosalind lifted up the orb with the purple liquid before she handed it to Rayon. Rosalind flinched before she grabbed the magic bomb and asked Cal a question. What do we do about this timer? The magic bomb might go off if we remove the timer. Cal spoke with a smile still on his face, then let it go off. Excuse me? Clap. Cal clapped once to get their attention. I'm going to cause a typhoon, so it is not hard to set a bomb off with it. He's right. Let's set it off. Then we can take the timer device. Rayon smiled brightly in joy. Cal patted Rayon, who had the same thought as he did, on the head as he gave the order. Choi Han, Miss Rosalind. Let's get started. It was now time to put out the fire. Standing guard at night is the hardest thing to do, but isn't it better than fighting? That is true. Of the soldiers who were standing guard around the pillar of fire surrounding the Maple Castle, the ones facing the Whipper Kingdom's base on the east were chatting with each other in order to stay awake. One of the soldiers looked toward the still brightly lit patient tent and started to speak. They are really good people. They are. Did they say they know the commander, Nim? Yes, that seems to be the case. They said that they stopped by while they were traveling the continent to heal our injured. The people that the soldiers were talking about were the 5 priests. They are taking turns healing the patients starting tonight? Yeah, it must have been hard for all of them to pull all-nighters last night. That makes sense. I'm really thankful for them. They're not getting anything out of this. The soldier nodded his head at his friend's comment before looking back at the pillar of fire. The fire made it difficult to breathe if you approached it. Now, it would be great if we could do something about this fire, huh? The soldier, looking at the pillar of fire, flinched. There was a different noise in addition to his voice. Crackle. It was the sound of fire burning. There was also a different noise, rumble. It was the noise you heard before a thunderbolt would strike. The soldier raised his head. It was the night of the new moon. However, the sky that used to still have the bright stars had changed. The sky was now covered in a black cloud, making them unable to see the stars. Rumble. The sound you hear before a thunderbolt strikes echoed in the soldier's ear again. Huh, and then, in the night sky, boom. There were flashes of light as an explosion occurred. What the? It was not a thunderbolt. The soldier could see 2 people wearing black masks and black outfits getting surrounded by a red light. One of the 2 people who were standing above the pillar of fire started to shoot fireballs toward the sky. Boom, boom. The fireballs ran into each other and started to make noise. Ha ha ha. They then heard loud laughter. The soldier started to speak to his friend. Hey, hurry up and go report this. I got it. The other soldier rushed toward the base. However, there was no need to do that. Pat. Multiple tents started to turn bright. Then the chiefs and the soldiers started to come out of their tents. The soldier clenched onto his spear as he saw them coming out. Rumble, the night sky started to rage. Small sparks started to appear from the black clouds. A storm, no, a typhoon seemed to be brewing. Ha 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 ha. The masked individuals continued to laugh as they shot magic into the air. Magic was a source of fear and anger for the Whipper Kingdom. Both anger and fear filled the eyes of the soldiers who were seeing magic again. There was another person looking at the 2 people shooting magic into the air. Cal, who was standing on top of the Maple Castle while observing the pillar of fire that was even taller, looked toward Rosalind and Choi Han. Wow, Miss Rosalind is doing well as expected. Choi Han is doing well too. Rosalind was shooting magic while Choi Han was laughing as loudly as possible. They looked like stereotypical villains. Cal looked up at the sky. The rain cloud was only over Maple Castle. It seemed like a storm would start at any moment. Swoosh, the strong wind started to blow even stronger. Rayon is amazing as well. Cal finished his short assessment and opened his hand. A blue light started to form from the necklace around Cal's neck. It was the dominating water. This water was making its appearance again. 1 drop. 2 drop. Multiple drops of water started to appear in the black cloud. Cal increased the number of water drops as he started to speak. Let's get started. I got it. Rayon removed the timer. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. The timer stopped. Rayon then threw the magic bomb higher than where Rosalind and Choi Han were standing. A moment later, bang, a loud explosion echoed in the sky. The magic bomb went off in an area with no people. At the same time, Cal opened his eyes. Drip, drip. It started to rain one drop at a time. The rain soon limited everyone's vision. The dominating water started to pour down upon Maple Castle. A strong rainstorm surrounded Maple Castle. Chapter 145. Isn't it a pity? 4. The soldiers subconsciously started to step back. They then heard a loud command. Everybody retreat. It was Commander Tunka. The soldiers quickly moved away from Maple Castle. Tunka gave an order to the warriors. The warriors with magic resistance to the front. The warriors with magic resistance moved in front of the soldiers and set up a formation. Their movements were quick, but oddly awkward. It could not be helped. Rumble, thunderbolts, a downpour, and the gushing wind. All three of those were surrounding Maple Castle right now. In this night with the new moon, the Maple Castle was the center of the storm. However, there was something that was even more eye-catching. The fire the soldier subconsciously clenched onto his spear and started to mumble. The fire was going out. The pillar of fire that was taller than the castle was slowly getting smaller. The rain and rising mist made it difficult for the soldiers to see the castle. What monstrous sight! The Whipper Kingdom warrior let out a gasp. Is it magic? He looked toward the storm that surrounded only the Maple Castle and started to shiver in fear. He lifted his head to the sky. He could see two people through the rain. The two people that were covered in black slowly started to descend. The warrior's gaze naturally followed them down. Ah! The warrior could see that the pillar of fire was now shorter than the castle. Plop, plop. He could now see the roof of the castle with the Magoru Empire's flag fluttering in the air. He turned his gaze to the red roof on the tallest tower of the castle. There was someone on the roof holding the flagpole. He was also completely covered in black. The warrior looked toward the person's hand that was not holding onto the flagpole. Swoosh, a strong gust started from the man's hand and rushed up to the sky. It seemed like that person was controlling the rain cloud. He felt a sense of pressure that he did not feel even when he went up against the Empire's mages or knights. At that moment, the warrior thought about a different existence. Nature. As someone who believed in nature, this warrior knew about the strength of nature. Nature was a dominating force that did not care about magic or humans. Step. The warrior took another step back. At that moment, the warrior could see someone pat him on the shoulder before moving forward. It was Commander Tunka. The warrior could finally put some strength into his hands again. Commander Tunka. He was a strong individual who had fought against nature ever since he was young. That was why the citizens of Whipper Kingdom chose to follow him. They respected that he did not succumb to nature. Who are you? Commander Tunka raised his voice. The person who heard his voice from on top of the roof, Cal, started to think. He sure has a loud voice. Cal started to feel cold from the rain. Even the vitality of the heart could not make the coldness disappear entirely. Cal decided that it was time to end it. Who are you? Tunka shouted one more time. At that moment, a gentle voice echoed in the area. It was a voice that had been changed with voice magic. I wonder, who could we be? It was Rosalind. Her teasing tone reached the Whipper Kingdom soldiers. Cal was thinking that Rosalind really was a good actress as he slowly rustled through his magic bag with one hand. Choi Han shouted at that moment. We are the secret organization. He used his aura to make his voice loud. Choi Han looked toward Cal to ask if he had done well. Cal had told him to say that this time. Cal let out a sigh and looked toward Tunka. What? Secret organization? Tunka started to frown as the soldiers started to get restless. They did not know that he was acting. The warriors calmed the soldiers down. However, they did not turn their gazes away from the monstrous people that had shown up. It was at that moment. Huh, one of the soldiers' eyes opened wide. The person holding onto the flagpole started to move. Gasp! The warrior could not help but gasp. Re-ip! The Magoru Empire's flag that had been fluttering on top of Maple Castle was ripped from the flagpole. The man on the roof used the dagger that he had used to rip the flag off to stab the Magoru Empire's crest. He then threw the dagger toward Tunka. Swoosh the dagger, and a whirlwind rushed toward Tunka. "Commander Nim," some of the shocked warriors called out to Tunka. However, Tunka only focused on the man on top of the roof. Pook! The dagger stabbed into the ground. It was right in front of Tunka. As people looked toward the dagger with shock, the man who cut the flag started to speak in a disguised voice. "The fire is out." Sizzle, the pillar of fire, was completely gone. Drip, drip. It was still raining slowly. The drops of water landed on the soldiers' cheeks. At that moment, the soldiers could hear Tunka's voice. "Ka-ha-ha-ha-ha." His voice filled the void left by the storm coming to an end. "Reep." Tunka ripped the Magoru Empire's flag with his hands. The ripped flag was then stepped on. Tunka's calm voice echoed in the area. "Advance to the castle." The fire was out. Capture them, the Empire, and anything else that is still here. Tunka gave the order. He then started to run in front of the group. This was Tunka's style. He rushed toward Maple Castle that was slowly becoming visible. He then arrived at the castle's first-floor entrance. He swung the metal club in his hand toward the largest wooden door. Bang, the door broke down. He didn't need something like aura. His natural physical strength was enough. He could see inside of the castle through the broken door. "Everybody, move, advance." Tunka shouted while Pelia, his right-hand woman, lifted her spear into the air. Tunka's direct subordinate warriors ran behind her. Pelia and the warriors rushed toward the castle gate. Swoosh, a strong gust of wind blew by again. Ugh. The strong gust of wind that pushed Pelia and the warriors back surrounded Maple Castle. Only Tunka was okay after being hit by the gust of wind. "Commander Nim, up!" Tunka looked up after hearing one of his warriors shout. Cal was up there. He had gathered with Choi Han and Rosalind as they floated in the air. "Rayon, invisibility, please." Cal could hear Rayon's response coming from right next to him. "All right." Cal's group slowly became invisible. "They, are you trying to run?" Cal did not care what they were saying and instead just ignored them. Once they became invisible, Rayon used flight magic to quickly move them back to their tent. They disappeared. "Commander Nim, what should we do?" "We will first go into the castle and investigate every corner." "Make sure that you are thorough." Cal left Tunka's fake angry voice behind him as he had Rayon remove the invisibility magic inside their tent. Ah, so cold. Cal was very cold. He had been hit by rain for too long while trying to look cool as he ripped the flag. 2 towels appeared in front of him. "Young Master Cal, here's a towel. I will use magic to dry you off." "Cal Nim, you will faint if you catch a cold." "I don't think it'll be that bad." Cal received the 2 towels with an iffy expression. A warm breeze brushed by Cal's body. Rayon started to speak in Cal's mind. "Human, it will be bad if you catch a cold. You can't vomit blood and faint again." Cal was completely dry in an instant because of Rayon's magic. He put his priest outfit over his black outfit and looked toward the others. All 3 of them had removed their masks and put their priest outfits on. Cal went up to the entrance of the tent and lifted up the entrance flap. Chief Harol was standing there. Behind Harol was a warrior who guarded the chiefs and was one of Tunka's trusted subordinates. "Priest Nim, I hope you weren't shocked by the sudden commotion." Cal started to smile with the white mask on his face at Harol's question. "I am okay, but I was thinking about going back to helping the patients since it woke me up. Are there any more patients?" "There are no more." "I see." The 3 priests who were woken up by the commotion headed back to the tent with the patients and stayed up the rest of the night. The soldiers all saw this, but they did not pay much attention to it as they were busy with the castle that was no longer surrounded by fire. However, the soldiers still felt gratitude toward the priests. Of course, Harol, who was one of the most thankful, whispered in Cal's ear. "Thank you very much, young Master Nim." Cal looked toward his priests working in the tent and started to speak to Harol. "It is a debt, remember it." "I will not forget it." The top of Maple Castle, the Whipper Kingdom's flag was flying up there now. "Are you leaving?" "We must go." "Sob, thank you very much." One of the soldiers was holding St. Jack's hand while thanking him over and over. The crazy priestess Cage was in a similar situation. There were soldiers bowing in front of Cal as well. 2 days had passed since the fire was put out. The three priests wearing white masks were standing in front of the castle while preparing to leave. The soldiers surrounded them. Tunka pushed them aside and walked to the front. "It's a pity that you cannot rest for a few days in the castle." "Not at all, Commander Nim." Cal rejected Tunka's offer and looked around. He made eye contact with each and every one of the soldiers. The white-haired priest started to speak. "Resting is not fitting for us. I'm sure there are still people in pain right now." Cal looked up at the clear sky as he continued to speak. "That is where we should be." The group behind him all showed their agreement. Tunka looked toward the soldiers as if he had no choice. "Open a path." "Do not block the path of the priest Nims." The soldiers created a path, even though they were filled with disappointment. The priests who had been healing patients without getting much rest for the last few days had given the Whipper Kingdom's soldiers potions while telling them not to get hurt again. They also used amazing powers to save those who were about to die. The soldiers felt reverence for these priests. One of the soldiers subconsciously started to shout. "Priest Nim," the gaze of the white-haired priest in front headed toward the soldier. The soldier must have received strength from the gaze as he started to speak. "I am curious to know which god you serve. Although I do not believe in a god, I would still like to know." Although this soldier believed in nature more than those so-called gods, he wanted to learn more about the priest who worked so hard to save him. That was why he wanted to give a prayer to thank their god. The soldier could see the priest pointing to his god. The priest was pointing to the sky. He could see the sun. The soldier looked back down. The priest smiled at him before starting to walk again. The priest said one more thing as he left. "The sun shines down without discriminating on life." "Ah." The soldier let out a gasp. The Church of the Sun God that the Empire believes in, although it was currently falling apart, it was the closest thing to their national religion. The soldiers finally understood why the priests were wearing masks. Tunka confidently started to speak at that moment. "If you are thankful to them, do not forget them. After being discriminated by magic, we have overcome those hurdles to create a fair world. Do not forget about that either." The soldiers repeated Tunka's words in their minds as they looked back toward the 5 priests as they disappeared in the distance. The 5 priests took off their masks once they could not see the soldiers anymore. Cage looked toward Cal and started to speak. "Young Master Nim, why did you decide to talk about the sun god?" "I have a plan." He would make the saint and holy maiden infiltrate the Empire in the future while wearing white masks. However, Cal did not need to tell her about that. The crazy priestess was curious but did not ask any more before joking with Cal. "Young Master Nim, I think you'll make a great pope in the future." Jack also nodded his head. He looked toward Cal with sparkling eyes. "She is right. Even if you do not have any divine powers, you are a warm person who has the purest of minds, Cal Nim. You definitely have what it takes to be a great pope that looks after the believers of God, not discriminating on life. I learned something new again." The crazy priestess Cage forgot what she wanted to say after looking at Jack. Cal didn't care as he looked toward Rayon, who was no longer invisible, and started to speak. "Let's go home." "All right, human." Early winter, Cal turned off the video communication device and stood up. He then headed toward the Holy Maiden's room and knocked on the door. Click. The fake Holy Maiden, otherwise known as the Sword Master Hannah, opened the door. "What is it?" "Let's go." "Where?" Cal confidently responded back. "To get revenge. Arm's 1st Battle Brigade." They would soon head to the ocean. The Sword Master Hannah had a venomous smile on her face. Chapter 146. Vicious 1. The Ubar Territory's coast. The whirlpools were still swirling around with many small islands located between them, on the farthest island in the Ubar Territory. Killer whale. "Long time no see." Rayon's front paws patted the killer whale Archie's slippery back. Archie held back his sigh as he looked toward Cal. Archie had a very disgruntled look. "Young Master Cal." "What?" "I will not give that woman a ride." "That woman." He was talking about Hannah, who was wearing a white robe. "Archie Nim?" "Pazetin Nim, some things cannot be allowed." Pazetin, the small humpback whale, could not say much else after hearing Archie's stern tone and gave Cal an awkward smile. This was the sword master who had attacked the whale tribe and killed many whales. Even if she was betrayed by Arm and they were currently working together, there were still things that they could not allow. The killer whale Archie had no plan on putting this former bitter enemy on his back. Cal started to speak. "Do whatever you want. We're going to tie a boat to you again like last time so she can ride there." They were going to tie a boat to Archie and another killer whale and have most of the group riding on the boat. Archie did not look happy but still nodded his head. He then peeked toward the white robe. Tusk. He could see her ugly face, his raging anger, and Hannah's disgusting face made him click his tongue. He thought that she got what she deserved and was happy about it, but was also angry at the fact that she was still alive. However, he also felt a bit sorry for her. Cal looked at the group getting on the boat and the whales before approaching Hannah. "You get on the boat." "Got it," Cal then casually asked. "The whale tribe's anger will be directed at you as well. Will you be okay?" Hannah responded with a question. "Why do you ask such a question with a smile?" Cal touched the smile on his face at Hannah's question as he answered. "Then why are you smiling too?" the sword master Hannah. She was trying to hold back a smile as well. Cal could tell that the current smile on her face was the result of suppressing her smile over and over again many times already. Cal could tell how much Hannah had been waiting for this moment based on her words. "Because I am happy. I can make them feel as much pain as I felt." Hannah smiled brightly and touched her sword. Her face that was covered in black lines had a beautiful smile. "I will dye the ocean with blood." Cal looked toward her and started to think, she definitely is not normal. Of course, Cal preferred people like this. Hannah started to speak after seeing Cal staring at her. "Why are you staring at me like that? Should I cover my face?" At some point, Hannah had started to not cover her face unless she needed to avoid people's gazes. Cal shrugged his shoulders and answered back, "Do whatever you want." "It isn't my business whether you cover it up or not." Hannah blankly stared at Cal's indifferent response before starting to speak. "Do you know why I'm showing my face?" Not really. Cal did not really want to know. He didn't care whether someone else covered their face or not. Hannah had a twisted smile on her face after seeing that Cal did not respond. "People frown whenever they see me. Some look at me with pity while others think that I got what I deserved, but before they get to that point, they are all disgusted." There was anger in Hannah's eyes. "Each time someone does that, I think about what I went through. I'll make it so that I can never forget it. That is why I will not cover my face." Hannah said that and then looked toward Cal. Cal had the same expression as before as he nodded his head and started to speak. "Whatever you want." Hannah's eyes lit up for a moment before returning to normal. A different kind of smile appeared on her face for a moment before disappearing as well. The necromancer Mary, who was watching the two of them, touched the sides of the hood covering her face. Mary started to mumble to herself. "It is difficult, but I am curious. I do not know if they would understand." Nobody heard her mumblings. Cal turned his gaze toward the whales. He could see that the whales who had heard what Hannah had said started to get odd expressions on their faces. "Let's go to Ainz Island 9. Cal, Rayon, Choi Han, Rosalind, Ron, Necromancer Mary, and the fake Holy Maiden Hannah. Cal was taking with him a group that could easily destroy not just a ship but an entire island as they headed to Ainz Island 9, the ocean in the middle of the eastern and western continents. An island among the many in the ocean. That was where the whale tribe and the tiger tribe were waiting for him. "Long time no see, young Master Cal." "Yes, long time no see." Watira was there to greet them when Cal's group arrived at Ainz Island 9. "I heard that you went to help the Whipper Kingdom in the fall." Watira asked about how Cal had gone over to help the Whipper Kingdom out. Tunka had not been able to progress any further after taking Maple Castle. The Whipper Kingdom had reorganized themselves after taking over Maple Castle. They then advanced to another castle. However, the Empire responded with a strong presence this time. Mages, knights, soldiers, and even advanced weapons. They were showing the true strength of the Empire that put their forces at Maple Castle to shame, and this was the Empire without alchemy. The Whipper Kingdom tried their best, but ended up having to retreat. Cal did not try to hide his involvement in the Whipper Kingdom. I did something big." Watira smiled after seeing that Cal was not hiding his involvement before she asked. The Whipper Kingdom will stop with Maple Castle, right? Won't that be the case? Cal followed Watira to the center of Ainz Island 9 as he continued to speak. It is almost winter. Even if they are getting funds from the other kingdoms, those kingdoms will start feeling a burden as well. The Whipper Kingdom will have to stop. This much was just right. The fact that they took over Maple Castle was a victory for the Whipper Kingdom. The other three kingdoms were satisfied that the Whipper Kingdom was holding up the Empire's attention. Of course, the Empire, who had tried to easily take care of the Whipper Kingdom with the Pillar of Fire and the dead mana bombs, was in disbelief. Watira smiled brightly and started to speak. Now that the Whipper Kingdom has stopped, is it our turn to move? It is. Although your side will be moving more than mine, Cal did not say that part out loud. Instead, he focused on what Watira was saying. We are currently using the oceanic life forms to observe arms movement. Their size. Neither the Tiger tribe nor we have the accurate number because they have become more secretive. What we were able to confirm was only 20 ships, so we think that there will be a lot more ships coming over. Cal nodded his head and gathered the information in his mind. ARM was one of the secret organization's branches. Cal did not think a lot of people would be coming over when he first heard that their first battle brigade was coming over. However, the number made sense if the first battle brigade and some of their subordinate organizations were coming over all at once. Cal started to speak again. Who did you say came over from the Tiger tribe for this meeting? The shaman and 3 highest-grade warriors are here. The rest of the Tiger tribe is on another island. Is that so? Cal nodded his head at Watira's answer. He did not plan to see the Tiger tribe ever again after this situation. At that moment, he heard Watira's voice. Yes, the shaman seemed to be anxiously waiting for you, Cal Nim. Me? Yes. He did not tell me why, but he said he really wants to meet the young Master Nim. Cal suddenly got the chills. He had not felt this kind of iffiness in a while. Cal slowed down as he headed to meet with the Tiger tribe members. However, they had already arrived at the center of Ainz Island 9. There were 3 wooden buildings at the center of this small island. Young Master Cal, are you not going? Cal stopped in front of those 3 buildings. No, just give me a moment to thigh screech. Cal started to frown at the sound of a door opening. I want some time to think. Why did things always happen when he tried to think? Cal continued to frown as he looked toward the building. He then became anxious. No, he flinched. They were huge. They were even larger than Tunka. Although they were close to 2 meters in height like Tunka, their muscles were much more developed. If I mess around and they hit me, it would be a one-way ticket to the afterlife. The door had looked quite large, but seeing these large people coming out made it look small. Young Master Cal, they are the Tiger tribe members. Cal could tell even without Watira's explanation. I am strong, I am a tiger. That was what their bodies seemed to be saying. Young Master Nim, this is my first time seeing the Tiger tribe. Human, tigers are quite large. Ron and Rayon's voice echoed in Cal's ears like background music. But human, that tiger is a bit weird. Cal could tell which tiger that Rayon was talking about. It was the tiger in the middle of the group walking toward Cal. The old man had a long beard and also seemed to be the largest of the group. His size made even Tunka seem like a cute little boy. That old man had many odd tattoos on his face. In his hand was a very small staff. Most importantly, the old man was walking toward Cal without any hesitation, even with his eyes closed. That old man is definitely the shaman. Although his size was not typical of a shaman, that old tiger definitely seemed to be the shaman. How could anybody not realize that he was the shaman when he was wearing a white suit-like outfit? The Tiger tribe's shaman and the 3 warriors behind him came over and stood in front of Cal. Cal observed the shaman's closed eyes. The dominating aura was subconsciously flowing out of his body. The Tiger tribe's shaman started to speak. I was waiting for you. The old man's eyes opened as he said that. Egu, Cal flinched. His eyes were completely white with no difference between the pupil and the whites of the eyes. Cal had been caught off guard and was slightly afraid. Cal started to speak toward the white eyes that were looking toward him. Do you even know who it is you were waiting for? The fact that the Tiger tribe was saying that they were waiting for him, as well as what Watira had said earlier, was making Cal feel iffy. Cal even wondered if Watira had told the tiger tribe about how the Forest of Darkness would be a great place for them to live. It was a possibility. However, he did not expect to hear what the old man had to say next. "You believe in the Tao?" Cal flinched once again. Cal, who had been looking into the white eyes of the old man for a while now, was no longer afraid. It was now more of a feeling of caution. This old man seems weird as well. He had a bad feeling about it. However, Cal answered back with certainty. "No." Cal was satisfied with his cold and short response. The old man answered back. "I grew up hearing that I was spiritual." He feels more like a medium than a shaman. This tiger in front of him was different compared to the shamans that Cal knew about, shamans. These could be considered the mages of the Eastern continent. They used all kinds of materials from nature to use the power of nature. Because of that, shamans always carried talismans or other materials with them. Cal responded back with indifference. "I see. I guess you do look spiritual." It was at that moment. Boom! The shaman old man stomped with his feet. Cal flinched. At that moment, the old man started to shout toward Cal. "Nature spoke to me, and I heard what nature had to say." That was scary. Cal put a hand over his heart to calm himself. Just what did he hear? Cal looked toward the old man and became shocked at what he heard. A red-haired man from the Western continent. "The man who is living a new life will come to find us." What? Cal flinched after hearing "the man who is living a new life." He really seems like a medium. Cal looked back at the white eyes that were staring at him. The old man's beard was shaking as he suppressed his voice and continued to speak. "It told me to flip it over." Cal caressed his arm that was covered in goosebumps. The tiger shaman looked toward Cal and raised his voice. "Nature told me that the red-haired man would be the one who flips over the ships of those damn bastards of the secret organization." His loud voice made it seem like the small forest on top of the island was roaring. Everyone else's gazes headed toward Cal and the shaman. Cal subconsciously asked the shaman who was looking at him, "How did it know? How did nature know about his thoughts?" That was giving him the chills. Chapter 147. Vicious 2. Watira and Cal's group flinched at Cal's response. A shocked Watira walked over to Cal. "Young Master Cal, you're going to flip them over?" Rosalind seemed to be debating the plausibility of Cal's plan, while Choi-Han just stood there with his mouth open in shock. "Cal Nim, are you really going to flip them over?" Other than Rayon, who was smiling brightly, everybody else seemed to be shocked. Cal answered them with indifference. "No." "Well, you see," his calm voice echoed throughout the forest. "I was thinking that it might make it easier for them to leave this world if we shook their ships a bit. Wouldn't it be better if we could send them to the afterlife without dirtying our hands as much?" Even the tiger tribe warriors that were standing behind the shaman slightly flinched and looked toward Cal. Watira had told them about Cal, however. The smiling dragon behind Cal made them even more nervous. Cal smiled awkwardly at the shaman's white eyes and the tiger tribe warriors' gazes that were directed at him. At that moment, Cal heard a familiar voice coming from behind him. "Ho!" It was Ron. "Young Master Nim, this shaman Nim does seem to be spiritual. He was able to guess your thoughts, and he even knew that you used to act like trash but changed your ways." Why are you suddenly talking about me being trash?" Cal looked toward Ron with a confused expression. Ron seemed to be satisfied with the question as he started to smile. "The man who is living a new life. Wouldn't that be talking about how you changed from your trash ways to become your current noble self?" Cal flinched. "The man who is living a new life." That was not actually talking about how he stopped being trash. However, Cal could not object to Ron's explanation. It was at that moment. There was a time when young Master Cal was trash. That's not possible. Young Master Calnim is not trash. Watira and Mary's robotic voice asked in shock. Mary was still speaking in a robotic tone, but she managed to say everything she wanted to say. The Sword Master Hannah looked toward Cal with an odd gaze in her eyes. Cal responded to the gazes directed at him. "I'm still trash." He thought that he was still trash. Although it was so that he could have a peaceful future, he seemed to be going around causing all sorts of issues. He also scammed people a lot. That was what Cal was thinking. Smirk. Cal could see Watira smirking at his response. She responded back with a gaze that seemed to be saying that she understood. I thought you were saying that you really were trash. I guess you meant it like that. What does she think I meant? Cal could not figure out what Watira was thinking about to respond to him like this. However, based on how Mary's black hood was nodding, Mary seemed to have accepted it as well. At that moment, Choi Han started to speak. Cal Nim's past actions were all just an act. He used to live a peaceful life until he decided on a goal and started to move. What kind of messed up version is this one? Cal looked toward Choi Han with disbelief. Choi Han smiled with satisfaction as he continued to speak. We know the truth even if you pretend it is not because you are embarrassed. My goodness. Cal really was in disbelief. At that moment, Rosalind, who had been quiet, started to speak. Actually, the fact that young Master Cal was trash was quite popular in the noble society. I trusted that rumor until I met young Master Cal and learned that he had been hiding his true self. Watira gasped at Rosalind's explanation, while Mary just continued to nod her head. Cal was at a loss for words. He wanted to say that his true self was someone who hoped to live a slacker life, however. He thought that they would understand it completely wrong if he tried to explain. At that moment, Cal felt like he was being stared at, so he turned his head. The sword master Hannah, she was looking at him like he was a terrible guy. Her look of disbelief made Cal feel more relaxed. He then looked toward the shaman with an even more relaxed demeanor. The shaman was still looking at him with those white eyes. How psychic. He really seemed to have spiritual powers. He seemed more like a medium rather than a shaman, though. Cal became curious. Would they know who I am? He started to speak. Who am I? Cal's unexpected question made everyone look at him with confusion. Would there be anybody here who doesn't know who he was? However, Cal was waiting for the tiger shaman's response. The shaman started to speak. What I have said is everything that I heard. I see. Cal felt disappointed at the shaman's words and nodded his head. However, the shaman had more to say. One more thing. There's more? Cal became curious and looked toward the shaman with anticipation. I was told that the red-haired man will give us a new home. That is wrong. Cal immediately responded to the shaman's statement. A new home. Although it would be great to use the tiger tribe to fight against the Northern Alliance's knights, Cal shook his head. He was trying to get rid of the useless thought in his head. The shaman started to speak. He had closed his eyes once again. My introduction has been delayed. My name is Gashan, and I am a shaman who is here as a representative of the tiger tribe. It is my honor to meet Dragon Nim and the amazing individuals of the Western continent. The shaman Gashan pointed to the wooden building. Let us continue to speak inside. Sure. Cal headed toward the wooden building as he started to think about the Ainz Island map. Ainz Island 9. The Ainz name was the name given to the collective group of 15 islands. Ainz Island 2 and 12 were currently being used by the whale tribe and the tiger tribe, respectively. Cal was currently flying in the air. They were not visible because of invisibility magic, so he openly asked his question. Is it them? Yes, young Master Cal. Cal looked on while hearing Watira's voice. They were currently in the middle of the ocean. There were tens of large and small ships sailing through the water. Even the small ships were just small in comparison to the large ships, as they were truly at least medium-sized ships. Cal started to frown. He then started to speak again. There are more than I expected. There were many people to respond his statement. Cal was currently flying and invisible with Rayon's magic, while Watira was doing the same with Rosalind's magic. The last person with them was the shaman Gashan. Cal looked to his side. This crow next to him was the only non-invisible presence. Gashan was still on Ainz Island 9 but had created a crow to accompany them. They could hear his voice through the crow. Although there may seem to be a lot of ships, the strongest of them are gathered on the 5 ships in the center. That is where we suspect Arm's 1st Battle Brigade is located. There are supposedly 20 members in that team. 20 people. The 1st Battle Brigade did not have as many members as the other brigades. Watira started to speak. The oceanic life forms are continuing to observe their movements. They should arrive near the Ainz Islands in about 5 days. Cal remembered what Ron had told him. Young Master Nim, I have fought against Arm on the eastern continent. Although they were members of the underworld, they specialized more in battle and murder instead of stealth and assassination. There were also a lot of people with special abilities. Even the subordinates of the members of the 1st Battle Brigade will be stronger than your average mercenaries. Cal looked down at the group of ships and shared his sentiments. They seemed to be strong. The enemy was stronger than he had expected. Cal was thinking with his arms crossed. They had 10 whales and approximately 20 tigers. They also had his group. Gashen started to speak. Something like this would not have happened if all of our tigers were still alive. It is very embarrassing. Cal heard how the tiger tribe ended up being in danger of being extinct. Tigers do not live in a streak. Similarly, the tiger tribe also did not live in streaks. The eastern continent has a lot of mountains. The tiger tribe was spread out across the eastern continent with only one family living in each mountain. Arm had found them one by one in order to kill them all. They were said to have brought hundreds of people broken up into 5 teams to attack each group of tigers. Gashen said something else as he explained. I heard a message from nature one day. I was told to gather the tiger tribe. At that moment, a messenger that one family managed to send out before they died arrived and explained the situation. The tiger tribe lived like hermits in the mountains and did not know much about the situation of the continent. They lived so far from each other that they barely knew the situation of their own tribe members. That was how the tiger tribe went from having 200 members to 20 tigers. All of them had gathered together and come to Ainz Island. That was why only about 15 out of the 20 tigers would be involved in the battle. Cal, who was still thinking things over, could hear Watira's voice. Young Master Cal, will we have a lot of casualties with our current numbers? The thought of losing never crossed Watira's mind. Even if they were low in numbers, they were still the whale tribe and the tiger tribe. There was no way that they could lose. However, she was worried that they would have a lot of casualties as the enemy had hundreds of people. Watira started to speak again with a concerned expression. Maybe we should have asked the other kingdoms for help. The entire whale tribe was not here either. The Whale King, Schickler, as well as a few others were currently observing the Northern Alliance while preparing for war. Watira quietly mumbled in a concerned voice. We can't lose too many at this point. Cal started to speak at that moment. Wouldn't they be most scared of natural disasters? Excuse me? Cal looked down at the ships and started to speak. What would happen if tens of whirlpools suddenly appeared in the ocean as they crossed? Swoosh, a whirlwind the size of a palm appeared from the middle of nowhere. It was Cal using the sound of the wind. He continued on with a confident voice. They will try to avoid the whirlpools once they see them. At that moment, they will see the islands. They will see the row of 15 Ainz islands. Then wouldn't they head for the islands? Cal thought about what would happen 5 days later as he continued to speak. Some of the ships with captains who do not have the skills to avoid the whirlpools will end up being destroyed. The people on board will fall into the ocean. They will not be able to fight properly in the water. Watira looked down at the ships in the ocean. She could hear Cal continuing to speak. And if we put whirlpools in between the 15 Ainz islands, the ships will gather in order to select islands to avoid them. Rosalind, Watira, and Gashen. The 3 of them did not say anything as they listened to Cal. What do you think? Watira's lips started to move. The tiger tribe and Cal's group would be at the islands that the ships decide to congregate at. The whale tribe and the whales would attack the shipwrecked enemies. Watira looked at the small whirlwind in the air. The ships down below would not be able to see this small whirlwind. She opened her mouth to speak. However, there was someone who was faster than her. Human, let's try it. It was Rayon. Cal could feel a gust of wind against his face from Rayon fluttering his wings. I am stronger now after learning from Goldie Gramps. Let's flip over all of those ships. Cal started to think. Dragons really are scary. How could he talk about causing a natural disaster with such joy in his face? Cal looked down at the tens of ships below and started to speak. Then let's plan for when they arrive near the islands in 5 days. Compared to the vast ocean, the Ainz Islands were fairly close to each other. Arm would experience hell once they arrive at these islands. All different kinds of hell would be waiting for them. Even if they managed to get out and escape to the ocean, they would then have to face the whale tribe. That would be a type of hell as well. Cal started to frown while imaging the sight. How terrible. It would not be a pretty sight. At that moment, he heard Gashan's voice. We can finally get our revenge in 5 days. For the whale tribe, tiger tribe, and the fake holy maiden Hannah, 5 days later would be the great day that they could finally get their revenge on Arm and show them the meaning of hell. Let's go back. Cal turned away from the ships and quickly headed back to Ainz Island 9. He then started to think, it's going to be tiring. He would need the maximum support of the vitality of the heart in order to use his ancient power. I'll rest until spring after doing this. That was Cal's cute plan. 1. PR, a group of tigers is called a streak. Chapter 148, Vicious 3, 5 days later. Cal looked at the sun setting over the horizon as he started to speak. The winter ocean is cold. Human, are you cold again? Should I use temperature-regulating magic again? No, I was just making an observation. To be honest, Cal was not cold at all. He had just said that because the wind was strong. Cal felt nostalgic while watching the sunset as he started to speak. They're finally here. Choi Han, Rosalind, Rayon, Gashan, and Pazitan in his small humpback. Whale form all looked toward the horizon after hearing Cal's comment. They could see small specks beyond the horizon. Those specks would be the tens of ships headed their way. The humpback whale Pazitan approached the boulder where Cal was standing and started to speak. Young Master Calnim, my sister wanted me to tell you that we are ready. There were whale tribe members and tens of whales currently waiting in the ocean to move. Cal started to speak. Gashan. Please prepare. The closed eyes of the shaman opened. Caw, 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 tens of crows appeared from the forest behind him. Gashan started to speak. Go. The crows broke into groups and started to head toward the other Ainz Islands. They would serve as messengers for the tiger tribe, whale tribe, and Cal's group who were all stationed at the different Ainz Islands. Rosalind approached Cal and started to speak. Young Master Cal, I understand why you dispatched Miss Mary and Mr. Ron together, but will it be okay to leave Miss Hannah on her own? Mary and Ron. The two of them were in charge of one of the Ainz Islands together. Even if Miss Hannah said that she can take them on her own. Rosalind could not hide her concern. The sword master Hannah. She had said that she would defend an island by herself. Choi Han started to speak before Cal could respond to Rosalind. She'll be fine. In your opinion? Choi Han smiled toward Rosalind. Yeah, she'll be fine in my opinion. I taught her. Rosalind closed her mouth at Choi Han's confidence. Swordsmen would understand each other the best. Choi Han had taught Locke and Hannah until the winter. Rosalind did not say anything else as she trusted Choi Han's judgment. At that moment, Cal remembered what Hannah and Ron had said earlier. Young Master Nim, please leave the island with the densest forest to me. I will stealthily kill all of them. Ron said that before replacing his benign smile with a chilling smile. Hannah had laughed before saying her part. Cal Henitus, I am fine on my own. Don't send anybody else with me. Will you be fine on your own? It's not a matter of if I will be fine or not. I don't think I'll be able to differentiate. Once I start to see blood, I can't stop myself from killing anything in front of me. One Cal quickly tried to erase the memories of these two vicious people. He didn't know why Arm would turn those two scary people into their enemies. Cal felt bad for them as he looked back toward the horizon. He could hear Rayon's voice. Human, the sun is setting. It is time to destroy everything. What a vicious dragon. Cal let out a sigh and started to speak. Step back. Swoosh wind started to gush around Cal's body. All of the preparations were ready. Cal had never used his powers to the max. Even the thunderbolt from the fire of destruction was not at max power. However, at this moment, he used the sound of the wind at the maximum power. Swoosh Rayon had something else to do and could not do this. He was the most suited for this task. Plop, plop. Rosalind grabbed the end of her robe that was fluttering and moved away from Cal. Little Rosalind, let's do it. Rosalind nodded her head at Rayon. The magic circle that Rayon had created was huge. Plop, plop. The sound of clothes fluttering became even louder. The trees in the forest started to shake. Rosalind lifted her magic staff into the air. She had never performed such grand magic before. However, she was about to do it. A storm. She stabbed her staff into the center of the magic circle that had 5 highest-grade magic stones in it. Pook. At that moment, red mana started to rise up from Rosalind's body. She could hear Gashan's voice at that moment. Wind that is the breath of the tired. Please gather in my undeserving body and become a large typhoon. Rosalind lifted her head. The black dragon had his 2 front paws pointed to the sky that was slowly turning dark along with the setting of the sun, started to become filled with black rain clouds. The large rain cloud covered half of the 15 Ainz Islands. There was also thunder and strong gusts of wind. Rosalind clenched onto the staff that she had stabbed into the magic circle. Just thinking about it amazed her. Plop, plop. She looked toward the source of the wind. Both Choi Han and Rosalind were looking at the same spot. Swoosh, tens of small whirlwinds were rising into the air with Cal in the middle. Cal's shirt was fluttering wildly. He was using the sound of the wind to its maximum to do this. This is quite difficult. Whenever he ran out of strength while using the sound of the wind, the vitality of the heart would activate in order to energize him once again. This is weird. He was able to call forth the wind as easily as a squirrel running on a wheel. Although he was running out of strength, the vitality of the heart would active every time a whirlwind the size of a fist was created. But something was weird. Ugh, this is weird. He was starting to summon new whirlwinds faster than before. Will I be able to get rid of them at the end? Were ancient powers always this strong? Cal's forehead started to get covered in sweat. Swoosh, splash, splash. Waves started to form in the water. Pazadin quickly moved away from the shore. Gashan and Pazadin were looked at Cal with shocked expressions. It was hard to see Cal as he was surrounded by a ton of whirlwinds. Ugh, Cal let out a groan. Humans, stop. I will destroy everything if you get hurt. Rayon shouted toward Cal, whose arms were shaking. Cal wanted to speak, but he did not have enough strength to do so. That's what I'm trying to do? That was what Cal wanted to say. However, Cal was having difficulty just making the whirlwinds remain by his side. Cal made eye contact with Choi Han through the whirlwinds. Although his clothes were fluttering wildly, Choi Han was standing firmly. Although it is not to a satisfactory level, I did take a step forward. That was what Choi Han had said after he finishing his training. Cal nodded his head toward Choi Han. Choi Han started to speak. Please start. Once Cal heard Choi Han shout, he released the whirlwinds he had kept at his side. Splash, the whirlwinds cut through the ocean in order to arrive at their respective locations following Cal's will. Cal lifted his head up. He could hear the sound of the trees in the forest as he looked up at the sky that was covered by black clouds. The rain clouds were expanding to the east. Cal turned his head to the other side. The sun was disappearing to the east and night was starting. A storm and whirlpools. The dangers of the ocean were being artificially created. It would only affect the area around the Ainz Islands. Cal fixed his clothes that were messed up by the wind and looked toward the horizon. The tens of ships that were just specks earlier were now visible. It is time for us to hide as well. Rumble thunder started to roar in the area. Drip. Drip. Opid, the leader of Arm's 1st Battle Brigade, he looked toward the raindrops falling on the ship and started to frown. Raining in the nighttime, is it about to storm? It is only a few drops right now, so I think we should quickly rush to the Ainz Islands and see what happens. Is it possible to get there before it gets much darker? Yes, sir. Opid nodded his head at his subordinate's response and looked around. Many people on each ship were moving around quickly in order to prepare for the rain. Tusk, should we have brought crews with us? Leader, we had no choice. His assistant leader Greedle approached Opid and patted his shoulder. We had to quietly go while hiding our identities. We could not bring large crews with us. It's already going to be a pain killing all of the navigators once we get to our destination. Greedle, you're right, but... Rumble. Opid looked up after hearing the thunder and had an ominous feeling. It was at that moment. Splash, a new noise that was different from the noise of the ship cutting through the ocean, reached his ear. Splash, splash, it was not just once. It's coming from the back. Oppid turned around. He was located at the center of the formation of ships. He looked toward the ships following behind his ship. A loud roar was followed by a large lifeform jumping into the air. Whales. It was the whales. Approximately 10 whales appeared on top of the water before disappearing back underwater. He noticed one whale among the group. It was a humpback whale. This whale had an X-shaped scar on her back. The whale tribe? Oppid's eyes opened wide. He had been told that the whale tribe was up north. The whale king, Schickler, was said to not move from their territory. Arm's 1st Battle Brigade had only moved after receiving that information from the Northern Alliance. So why was it that the whale tribe's future queen was here? Leader, it is the whale tribe. Why are they here? Assistant Leader Gretel started to frown and asked. Oppid did not respond and instead gave an order to his subordinates. We will head for the closest Ainz island. Facing the whale tribe in the water would result in severe casualties. No, they would need to prepare for death. Put the black flag on the spotlight. After giving the order to raise the black flag that signaled that there was an emergency, Oppid looked toward Assistant Leader Gretel. Gretel, bring all of the members here. Got it. Oppid looked toward everyone, moving quickly, and bit down on his lips. Splash. Ooh, the whales started to move faster toward them. Shit. Oppid started to frown. Raising the flag, the black flag slowly went up the mast after the subordinate's report. Oppid touched the sword on his waist. Oppid was a highest-grade expert and a middle-grade mage. He was about to move to get his armor. It was at that moment. Huh! The navigator's eyes opened wide. Bang! The loud bang coming from in front of their ship made Oppid turn around. What was that? A whirlwind suddenly shot out of the ocean. It started from there. Leader Nim, whirlwinds suddenly shot out of the ocean. Oppid had already started to use magic to jump across the ships before the subordinate had said that. Son of a... Although only one whirlwind shot up to the air, there were many large and small whirlpools in the water. It started to rain harder. Oppid raised his head. It was dark. There were no stars in the sky. It would have been completely dark without their magic lights. The only thing that he could hear was the sound of the whales' roars. Oppid gave an order to the fleet. Go to the Ainz Islands. Get there as quickly as possible, one of the navigators shouted back at Oppid. But the whirlpools. Dodge them. The whale tribe is rushing toward us. Get to the islands if you don't want to die. They could fight properly if they reach the islands. However, it was a stormy night. Meeting the whales in the ocean during a storm would solidify their deaths. Leader, I woke up all of the members. Oppid Nim, we will not be able to anchor all of the ships on one of the Ainz Islands. Oppid verified the speed of the whales approaching them from a distance and quickly gave the order. Divide up and get to whatever piece of land you can find. Gretel, divide up the members to the different ships. Each of the members of the 1st Battle Brigade had their own large group of subordinates. Bang! He could see one of the ships in the back getting caught up in a whirlpool. He could hear the screams of the people on board. Should we go save them? Oppid heard something as his subordinate asked that question. It was the whales. No, we will continue to move forward no matter what. We will be able to survive until tomorrow if we get to an island even while losing some ships. Contact Central as soon as we arrive at an island. Screech. Ooh-oh. Oppid held onto the railing, the ship tilted to one side. The high-grade assassin and swordsman Gretel had already started to move in order to follow Oppid's orders. Damn it! Why was this suddenly happening? Oppid held on to the railings tighter after seeing the silhouette of an island in the distance. He did not have time to think about which of the 15 Ainz Islands that one was. Another whirlpool? Oppid was now swearing. There were many whirlpools in between the islands. It was difficult to see them in the distance because of the rain. It looks like we will all need to split up. Do what you have to do to safely land. The whirlpools were placed so that multiple ships could not pass through at once. The tens of ships divided up to head toward the different Ainz Islands. Bang, crash, Oppid turned around. One of the mid-sized ships had been damaged. He could see a humpback whale roaring to the side. Hurry up. We are almost there. The navigator felt the tip of Opid's sword on his back and shouted back. They avoided a large whirlpool and could barely see one of the Ainz islands. Opid gave an order as soon as the ship docked by the island. Everybody hurry out and get into formation. Opid's subordinates quickly rushed out of the ship. Opid watched the other ships avoiding multiple whirlpools and turned his gaze toward the island. It was a beach with a small, sandy area. He could see a small forest behind the sand. Opid immediately headed for the forest. This was an island located between the eastern continent and the western continent. Nobody lived on these islands. Although his mind was chaotic after seeing the whale tribe, he still needed to quickly inspect the forest and find a good location. It will be difficult for the whales to get past the whirlpools as well. Opid started to walk faster with a slightly relieved mind. It was the moment he entered the forest. Rustle. Opid stopped walking. Rustle, rustle. It was the sound of someone walking. Opid faced forward. It was at that moment. He could see a golden light. Slice that golden light cut through one of the trees. He could see a person in between the golden lights. It was a woman with black spider webs on her face. The woman was laughing as she sent out more golden lights. A sword master. Opid let out a groan. At that moment, the other divided members of the brigade started to hear odd noises. Grrr. They heard the roars of animals and could see people with vertical pupils that were characteristic of feline animals appear in front of them. Ron, who was on Ainz Island 13, started to speak to Mary. "I will take care of the assassins. Miss Mary, you can rest." "Yes, grandfather." 3 Ron, who had seen assistant leader Greedle, disappeared into the darkness. Cal had his arms crossed as he looked down and started to speak. What a great giant mess. The view from above was quite satisfactory. The night was only just beginning. Translator's note. 1. PR. Hannah was the one who said that a sea of blood would be beautiful. I don't think her blood addiction is as bad as Radhika, but she definitely still has a blood addiction. Why is everyone in this novel a sadist? 2. This is a Korean idiom for how easy it is. Instead of a hamster, they have a squirrel in a cage. 3. Koreans use the term grandfather for all old men, not necessarily just their blood-related grandfather. Chapter 149. Vicious 4. Swish, swish, there were 2 whirlwinds roaring on top of Cal's palm. Cal felt a presence and turned to see Rayon looking at him. "I told you I'm okay." Even after Cal said that, Rayon continued to look at him with a sharp gaze that looked like it could cause sparks. Rayon started to speak. "Your arms were shaking just now. Don't use too much of the ancient power. Weak human, you need to do some strength training." "What do the ancient powers have to do with strength training?" Cal questioned Rayon's thought process, then ignored Rayon to look at the people who were in an invisible barrier with him in the air. Rosalind, Choi Han, and Gashin. The 3 of them could not say anything as they looked down. Cal looked toward Choi Han and started to speak. "What are you doing?" Choi Han and Gashin responded to his question. Rosalind slowly turned toward Cal as well. Cal's finger started to move. His index finger was pointing down below. "How about you go down and fight?" The shaman Gashin flinched. He then realized that he had been blankly staring down at the Ainz Islands. "Yes, I need to help as well." He was the one who gathered the tiger tribe and brought them over. Gashin put some strength into the hand that was holding up his wooden staff. It was at that moment. "No, Cal Nim, I need to be here to protect you. I don't know when you will get hurt or start coughing up blood again." Choi Han continued to speak. Gashin opened his eyes to look toward Choi Han with a look of disbelief. "He is weak." Gashin could see the whirlwinds roaring in Cal's hands. Who was the one to create all of the whirlpools roaring in the ocean between the Ainz Islands? Even if he himself, Rosalind, and the dragon created the storm, those whirlpools were dangerous. Gashin was in disbelief at Choi Han's story. In fact, he thought Cal was amazing for seriously listening to such a story. Cal started to speak. "I may be like that, but I don't think I will cough up blood this time." "He's right, Choi Han. The great and mighty Rayon Miru is here?" "Yes, the great and mighty Rayon is here as well." Choi Han nodded his head at the conversation between the human and the dragon. "Yes, I understand." Gashin still had a look of disbelief. There was a hand patting his shoulder. It was Rosalind. Rosalind started to speak once Gashen looked toward her. "Mr. Gashen, let's go." "I understand." Gashen followed Choi Han and Rosalind down to the island. Gashen could hear Cal's voice coming from above his head before they split to go to different islands. "Choi Han, you cannot destroy the island." Gashen was thinking that Cal was saying all sorts of things. At that moment, Choi Han looked up and shouted back, "Yes, Cal Nim, I will be careful." The old shaman just clenched onto his wooden staff. He did not say anything and split away from Rosalind, and Choi Han ahead toward the Ainz Islands with the tiger tribe. Swoosh, a chilling noise brushed by his side. A whirlwind had passed by him while heading down. The whirlwind soon crashed into the ocean. Bang! The whirlwind dove into the water to start raging inside the ocean. Gashen clenched onto his wooden staff as he quickly moved down. "Oh, Nature Nim, please calm my shaking heart." The shaman used that short prayer to calm himself down. Cal, who had sent 2 whirlwinds to block the path of the ships, started to leisurely watch. Thanks to the invisible shield created by Rayon, the rain and wind could affect him. Although he could not see everything because of the darkness, Rayon's thunderbolts allowed him to get a decent grasp of the situation. "Wow!" Cal let out a gasp of admiration. "Gwa-ah-ah-ah!" The large whales roared as they rose up to the surface. Bang! The mid-sized ship's side broke apart after being hit by 3 whales. Cal watched this and gulped. Vicious. Witira and the other whales continued to crash into the ships in their whale form. However, it wasn't that they were doing this without considering their own health. They were using the whales they brought with them to threaten the ships, and only crashed into the ships trying to get away from the whirlpools to strategically guide them to the Ainz Islands. As Cal watched them thinking they were scary, Rayon shared his thoughts. "The whales listened to you very well, human, apparently." It had been Cal's command. He just did not expect them to do so well. He could see the broken ship through the thunderbolts. The people on the ship who could not dodge fell into the ocean. They could not calm down in the darkness. Their trip had been fine until the sun had set. But why was all of this suddenly happening? One member flailed in the water and tried to swim toward a wooden plank floating nearby. He thought that doing so would allow him to live. Just a little more, almost there. The member barely managed to reach the wooden plank with the tip of his fingers. He reached out both hands with all of his strength to grab on. It was at that moment. Splash, the sound of something moving in the water could be heard. The sound of rain was also present, but the member could not hear that at all. Splash, the sound of something moving became even clear. No. The member's hand was shaking as he held on to the wooden plank. He felt like his body that was underwater was starting to stiffen up. Finally, the life form that was moving in the water revealed itself. Ooh, it was the cry of a sad whale. The whale opened its mouth toward the member of the organization that had killed their young children. The member could not speak properly as he shivered and faced the wrath of the whale. Many whales that came with the whale tribe moved to the areas with the broken ships. It was hell for the people who fell overboard. However, hell was not only on the ocean. There were many people who had even more anger than the whale tribe all around the Ainz Islands. "See, crazy, why are the tiger tribe bastards here, ugh?" One of the members of Arm's 1st Battle Brigade could not finish his sentence. This island was covered in boulders, tree, and tall grass. The night was not an issue for the tigers to jump around this island with the roughest terrain in the Ainz Islands. The subordinates who were walking behind their squad leader started to step back. "GRR." The animal laughed as it ripped the squad leader's arm from his body. Tap, tap, tap. The tigers were lightly walking on the muddy ground. The 3 tigers ripped apart the squad leader's body. The gazes of the tigers that had lost their family and fellow tribe members then turned toward the subordinates, who were in a state of panic after losing their leader. An odd noise was coming out of the tigers. One of the tigers stepped forward. Smoke appeared, and the tiger soon turned into a human. The large tiger tribe warrior opened up his arms and started to speak. "Kehe, you want to catch our people and take our hides." There were 5 brigades under Arm's Battle Brigade. One they had split up by brigade to take their subordinates and take out the tigers living in each mountain. With all of these ships being part of one brigade, there would have only been at max 4 tigers to fight against them. There was blood flowing out of the mouth of the tiger that had ripped the squad leader's arm off. He started to shout to the remaining armed subordinates with fury. "I will take all of your hides off." The 2 subordinates with the squad leader started to run toward the rest of their group. The tiger tribe warrior just calmly watched them run. He started to speak after a while. "Time to hunt. The night is long." The tiger secured the mana disturbance tool in his chest pocket as he stretched his neck muscles. All of the tigers were holding a mana disturbance tool in order to prevent Arm from sending the message that the whale tribe and the tiger tribe had teamed up. The Roan and Breck kingdoms had sent these devices to support them. The 3 adult tigers disappeared into the darkness with a tiger's unique, relaxed walk. They did not hide their presences. They let out a laughter of anger after hearing the screams of Arm's members. On the other hand, there was someone moving very quietly on another island. This was the island with the most diverse terrain of the Ainz Islands: cliff, forest, sand dunes, and swamp. This island that had all these terrains was currently engulfed in a silent battle. Ugh. One of Arm's members fell down with a short groan. He was one of the assassin specialists under assistant leader Gretel. He had been the second of the 2 that had gone to investigate. The corpse was carefully laid down on the ground. The servant Ron quietly looked down at the corpse before cleaning the blood off of his dagger. His son Beacrox had packed this handkerchief for him. There was no noise in any of his movements. All that could be heard was the sound of nature, the sound of waves crashing against the shore, the sound of the rain, the sound of thunder. Ron started to smile. He could hear another type of noise. It was the sound of a human moving around. Ron had been the successor to one of the 3 families in control of the eastern continent's underworld. He slowly moved after hearing the quiet noises coming from the people. They should be the new group sent to investigate after the first group did not send back any information. That was how Ron started to take down assistant leader Gretel's group one by one. Ron was someone who had survived as an assassin for over 60 years. In addition to getting revenge for his family, he still had the ability to teach these youngins the definition of fear. Say cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. The sound of grass rustling in the wind could be heard. Ron moved toward the location of the stealthy footsteps. In another island, violence rather than stealthiness dominated the area. This was the island with the flattest terrain. Bang! One of the few boulders broke apart. "Damn it!" Oppid shouted out while breathing heavily. However, he did not even have a moment to rest. He felt chills on his back. Bang! Another sound of the terrain breaking could be heard. He could not turn around. He did not even have the time to think about what had happened to his subordinates. Where did such a crazy bitch come from? She was a crazy bitch. She was an extremely crazy bitch. Ha 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 ha! A laughter echoed through the forest. It was a sword master using a golden aura. She was laughing while destroying everything in front of her. Oppid, the leader of Arm's first battle brigade. His first brigade was not strong in comparison to Arm's other brigades. However, they knew how to effectively use their individual abilities. That was why they were stronger than the knights of most kingdoms. That was why they were able to strategize to take down a group of tigers in the eastern continent. He had used his standard methods when first going up against this sword master. Fuck, it wasn't supposed to be like this. However, that sword master was a crazy person. The sword master was now covered in both black spider webs and red blood. She did not seem to care for defense, nor did she show any fear. She started to laugh even more as she saw blood and started to rush toward them. Oppid and some of his subordinates had managed to hit her with some arrows. However, rather than wincing in fear, she had rushed toward them even more fiercely. Why is that woman here? There was no way he still would not know the identity of this woman. He was the leader of Arm's first battle brigade. He had decent knowledge of the organization's activities. The fake holy maiden that the organization had thrown away. This was that woman. He was certain this was that woman. Oppid was running back to his ship. He could not hide in the island. He needed to escape to the ocean. Based on what he was going through, he could not fathom how the other members were doing. The rain and wind were strong because of the storm, but he felt like he could hear people screaming as well. Wee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-eeing at the same time, he could hear the sound of a mana-disturbance tool coming from the woman. I need to contact the organization. He needed to get away from the range of the disturbance tool to contact the organization. Oppid clenched his side and continued to run. Blood was pouring out of the cut he had received from her aura. It was at that moment he heard a voice right behind him. "Do you think you can continue to run and live?" Son of a bitch. Oppid started to frown. He could see the beach in front of him. He just needed to go a bit farther. "Blood is really beautiful, don't you think so? Is that why you all wanted to kill me?" She was teasing him. The crazy sword master was chasing behind Oppid while teasing him. Oppid held back his swearing as he continued to run. He had no choice. A deer could only run away from a predator. He then reached the sandy beach. He saw the ship that was docked at the beach. However, there was a man with black hair standing in front of it. Oppid could hear the sword master's voice coming from his back. What the? No fun. Oppid took out his sword. Clang. However, the high-grade expert's sword was easily broken by the black sword master's aura. That aura also cut through Oppid's chest. The sword master Hannah looked toward Choi Han in a grumpy manner. "I will do it on my own." "I know. I just came to tell you not to run too wild and destroy the island." Hannah turned around and headed back to the forest without responding. She had killed the leader first, as Cal had ordered. It was now time to kill the rest. Choi Han then turned his gaze to the ocean. The small humpback whale Pazatin offered him his back, and Choi Han jumped on to head to another island. He quietly started to mumble. "I can't understand it." "Understand what?" Choi Han shared his thoughts at Pazatin's question. This was what he had been thinking about after seeing Arm's group that was strong enough and large enough to take on any decent knight brigade of a kingdom, but did not have anyone with overwhelming strength. Why are they trying to kill strong people? The whale tribe, the tiger tribe, and the fake holy maiden and sword master Hannah. It was as if they were trying to kill all the strong people in this world. Choi Han thought about the people that the secret organization tried to kill instead of roping into their organization, and could not understand their thought process. Pazatin responded to Choi Han's question. Maybe because it is easier to rule if they are the strongest. Anyways, what good will it do even if you knew what they were thinking? Choi Han nodded his head at Pazatin's comment, which seemed to say that the reasons did not matter. It was true. It was not his problem. It was not important who the leader of the secret organization was or what their thoughts were. All he had to do was destroy them so that they could not continue doing what they were doing. That was his role. "Pazatin, let's head toward the island with the weaker tigers." They avoided the whirlpools as Choi Han headed to where he needed to go. At that moment, Cal could only see glimpses of the battlefield through the light provided by the thunderbolts. He could not see all the blood being shed. However, Rayon, who could see everything, peeked toward Cal every so often. It was because he didn't want the weak human to have second thoughts after seeing what was going on. Rayon. What is it, human? I cannot see anything." "What is he talking about?" Cal looked toward Rayon with confusion. Rayon avoided his gaze, but he could hear Cal's voice. "You brought the dead mana bomb with you, right?" "I brought it because you asked me to." "What is it?" Rayon looked toward Cal with curiosity. Cal was speaking with a smile on his face. "I'm thinking about leaving some evidence on the most destroyed island." "The evidence of a dead mana bomb?" Cal looked down at the ocean below. He could only see darkness. "Even though the tiger tribe and some of our people have mana disturbance tools." "Gramps, Ron doesn't have one." "Yes. Ron doesn't have one. But anyways, some of their mages would have sent out emergency communications after seeing the whale tribe." The focus of Cal's side as they observed Arm the last 5 days were on the existence of mages in the group. They sent out crows and the oceanic lifeforms to thoroughly investigate the number of mages. Rayon nodded his head. It is obvious that they would have done so. Then wouldn't the secret organization come here to investigate? "You're right. They will do that." Cal resolved Rayon's curiosity. What would they think when they see the faint traces of someone trying to erase the residue from the Empire's dead Mana bomb? Rayon started to laugh. Hee hee. That sounds fun, human. Cal started to think after hearing Rayon's response. What a scary dragon. However, contrary to his thoughts, Cal was smiling as well. Translator's note. 1. The author uses squad for both the 1st Battle Brigade and the squads underneath them, so I am using brigade for the group of 20 and squad for the subordinates under each member. Chapter 150. Vicious 5. Dawn was approaching. The ocean was calm now that the storm was over. Cal looked up at the sky that was no longer covered by the large rain cloud that covered half of the Ainz Islands, and then lowered his head. He had a single thought in his head. Scary bastards. Cal was scared. Everything was destroyed. Other than the ships that reached the islands, all of the ships were floating in pieces after the whirlpools and the whales got to them. He could see corpses floating like black dots as well. Human, are you shocked? Cal looked toward the black dragon, Rayon. Human, is this too much for you? We had no other choice. Rayon shook his head as he started to speak in a serious tone. Sometimes, one side must die or get injured badly in order for the other side to live. You need to firm your resolve to survive the upcoming chaos. Goldie Gramps said that there is nobody as unlucky as you. Rayon. Yes, I can understand how unlucky you are, so just trust me, the great and mighty Rayon. Let's go down. All right. Cal let Rayon's comments in through one ear and out the other as he headed down to the Ainz Islands. The battle had continued from the moment the sun went down to right before the sun came back up. This overnight battle was, as expected, won by Cal's side. It was a battle that they could not lose. The Whale Tribe, the Tiger Tribe, and Cal's group. Who would expect all of these strong forces to gather together to fight a common foe? Tap. Cal's feet landed on the sand. Ainz Island 6. This was the island that the Sword Master Hannah was fighting on last night. What a mess. Cal's gaze headed down in a diagonal direction to see Hannah just casually sitting on the ground. Her bloodied blade was stabbed into the sand. Hannah raised her head and started to speak as if she was responding to Cal. Isn't it great to look at? She was covered in blood. Cal felt disgusted after seeing that Hannah's blonde hair and black scars were not visible because she was completely drenched in blood. It was not because she covered herself in someone else's blood. Cal took out a potion and threw it toward Hannah. Enjoy it after you check your own condition. The Saint Nim will faint if he sees you like this. Hannah caught the potion and then started to laugh. Cal looked away from Hannah, who was laughing even while bleeding from the injuries she received from the enemy's swords and arrows. She really is crazy. Both of these twins had something wrong with them. Cal continued to look away as he watched the rising sun as well as the rest of his group slowly approaching Ainz Island 6. Hey, Cal Henatus? What? Cal responded to Hannah without looking back. She continued to speak in a quiet but crazy voice. That was not enough blood. I know. Even I know by now that you are crazy for blood. That was why there was something he wanted from her as well. Young Master Cal? Watira quickly rushed to shore. He heard a quiet voice along with Watira's shout. Thank you for keeping your promise. Cal had kept all of his promises. He kept her alive and gave her an opportunity for revenge just like he said he would. Hannah looked toward Cal, who was pretending to not hear what she said while walking toward Watira, and opened the lid of the potion. Cal and Watira were soon in front of each other. Young Master Cal, there are no living humans in the ocean. Cal just nodded his head after hearing Watira saying that they killed everyone with a smile on her face. She thought that this serious look was more Cal-like than being happy, and continued to speak. First of all, we took care of all of the 1st Battle Brigade members. We are currently looking for the few subordinates who are hiding in cracks in cliffs, caves, or other random locations. I presume that we will be able to take care of all of them by lunchtime. She was someone who had overwhelming strength, but this battle was difficult due to the number of enemies. We will take care of all of the bodies and the broken ships. Cal, who had been quietly listening, started to speak. What about the ships that are still intact? That made Watira look toward the ship currently docked at Ainz Island 6. Each island had some ships in good condition as well. I'm not sure. How should we take care of them? We don't really need them, so should we give them to another kingdom? Watira, who intentionally did not finish her sentence, could hear Cal's voice. Can I have them? Excuse me, Cal asked without any hesitation. I wish to take the remaining ships with me. Is that not allowed? Watira thought about how hard Cal had worked to create the whirlpools. She thought that she could see the exhaustion in Cal's eyes as she looked at him. No, that is fine. We have no use for the ships, and we'd rather give them to you than to another kingdom. Great! Cal worked hard to prevent himself from smiling. The ships he needed to use with the Golden Turtle ship had rolled into him as a bundle. It would be a great sight to receive the Northern Alliance's ships with the secret organization's ships. Cal could hear Rayon's voice in his mind. Rayon was speaking into Cal's mind even though he was not invisible. Human, good job. We got some ships for free. Rayon definitely was getting smarter. Cal casually petted the head of the dragon who was looking at him with sparkling eyes. He then looked toward Rosalind, Mary, and Ron as he started to speak. How was it? I quietly took care of everything. Good work. Ron had his benign smile on his face as he quietly stepped away. Cal saw that even Choi Han had arrived as he lifted his head up. Caw, caw. He could hear the sound of a crow cawing. Ooh-oh, at the same time, the roar of wild animals echoed through the quiet ocean and the island. It was the roar of the tigers who had lost their families and tribe members. There was both joy, sorrow, and anger in their roars. Cal looked toward the crow that Gashen had sent as a signal that they were done and started to speak. Let's go to Ainz Island 9. Ainz Island 9. This was where everyone had agreed to gather. Cal had let down his guard. Cal realized his mistake once they got to Ainz Island 9. The 20 tigers with Gashen at the center were looking toward Cal with reverence as soon as he got to Ainz Island 9. Male, female, young and old. These tigers that were huge regardless of whether they were young or old were all smiling at him with a bright smile that only tigers could have. One Gashen approached him with his eyes closed. He has a smile on his face. Unfortunately, all of them except for the very young and old were covered in blood. They were all covered in the blood of their enemies. Gashen cautiously started to speak to Cal. Young Master Nim? No, the Forest of Darkness was not an option. Cal was taking that out of the equation right away. No, I just wanted to thank you. Cal looked toward Gashen with a gaze that was full of suspicion. The shaman gently continued to speak. He sounded like a grandfather reading a children's book in his old and gentle voice. The only issue was that he was speaking with a mouth covered in blood. We were able to get proper revenge thanks to your abilities. We were able to hunt properly for the first time in a long time. One of the young tigers that had not reached their full size yet thanked him with sparkling eyes. Young Master Nim, thank you very much. Gashen lowered his head toward the child and continued to speak with a bitter smile on his face. I need to take them to the Western continent because I think that we will continue to run into harm if we stay in the Eastern continent. It would be great if there was even a small plot of land where we can stay until these children can grow up. We still have not gotten enough revenge either. Cal started to frown. Gashen continued to speak. We have also brought some offerings to give to the landlord. Offerings. Cal looked toward Gashen. Gashen slowly took a jewel out of his pocket. The tiger tribe is a tactful tribe. Each family gathered their medicinal herbs and precious items when they left their mountains. The corners of Cal's lips moved slightly up before going back down. Ahem. Cal let out some fake coughs. The young tiger started to shout. I brought some items too. The young tiger took out a small bottle from his wide sleeve. These are 200-year-old snake scales that were in our cave. I heard that they can become very strong arrowheads. The tiger tribe seems to be a pretty decent tribe. Cal quietly improved his perception of the tiger tribe. Rayon started to speak in his mind. Human, they seem nice. Right? Cal thought about how the chances of getting even more intertwined with the secret organization would increase if he took the tiger tribe to the Forest of Darkness. However, he had another thought at the same time. When did avoiding things keep me away from these issues? Cal could not avoid the secret organization now that he was involved in the meeting between the four kingdoms and the whales. Cal looked toward Gashan and focused on the shaman's closed eyes as he started to speak. "I have a condition." It was at that moment. "Ooh-oh, ooh-ooh-ooh-ooh," Cal flinched. "What is wrong with this old man? Ooh-oh, ooh-ooh-ooh-ooh." Gashan suddenly opened his eyes. His white eyes were opened extremely wide as he started to raise his hand with the wooden staff in the air. His large body was shaking. This is scary. Cal subconsciously took a step back. It was at that moment. "The end, nature is speaking to me," Gashan shouted as he continued to shake. Cal could not believe what was going on, however. Gashan's next words made Cal fix his thoughts. "The end, nature is telling me that our tiger tribe will have to fight against cold swords next spring." Wow. Cal was amazed. How could there be such a psychic shaman? He started to get the chills. How did it know that I was planning on making the tiger tribe fight against the Knights of the Northern Alliance? Cal stared at Gashan, who was starting to calm down. Gashan's white eyes focused on Cal once he finally calmed down. Cal started to speak. "That future will become true if you go with me. Are you okay with that?" Gashan answered without any hesitation. He didn't even need to ask the others. "Our tiger tribe has lived too quietly for these past years. We will happily run wild if it has to do with our revenge." Cal nodded his head. "Then I welcome you." Cal reached his hand out and the shaman shook it. The forest of darkness was wide. There was plenty of space for 20 tigers. "That is wonderful." Witira has a bright smile on her face as she started to speak. She had finally figured out why Cal hadn't been willing to accept the tiger tribe until now. He didn't want the tiger tribe to have to fight against the Northern Alliance. It wasn't as if Cal did not have money. He would not be tempted by the tiger's medicinal herbs and offerings. Witira had heard that Cal was the son of a wealthy family. He was not the type to be greedy for their offerings. If he was a greedy person, then there was no reason for him to put his most valuable asset, himself, on the line to help others without getting anything in return. Witira started to speak. "We will help you move the tiger tribe and the ships." This was her way of thanking Cal for helping out without expecting to receive anything in return. Cal naturally accepted her offer. "Thanks in advance." Of course, we also have to discuss the sea route issue. The sea route to the eastern continent. Cal had the rights to this route up north that the whales controlled. Cal opened his mouth to respond to that issue. Human. Rayon took the video communication device out of his spatial dimension and approached Cal. The video communication device was shining red from a call. Rayon continued to speak to Cal, who started to frown. "It is the Crown Prince. Red means it is the Crown Prince." It was Alberu that was calling. "Should I connect the call?" Cal sighed at Rayon's question and started to speak. "Let's connect him inside of the wooden building. Witira, Gashan, let's talk about the other issues later." "Sure thing. Please respond to the Crown Prince first." Witira answered back and Gashan nodded his head. Cal immediately headed into the wooden building after receiving the two leaders' responses and asked Rayon to connect the call. He then sat down on a wooden chair across from the video communication device. Although it was hard compared to his usually soft couch, Cal did not care. Alberu Crossman, the person who had told him to get some rest, was suddenly calling him. He had a bad feeling about this. Cal greeted Alberu once his face appeared on top of the device. Alberu ignored Cal's unhappy expression and started to speak. He launched a straight without any jabs. "You don't know the Imperial Prince's face, do you?" The Imperial Prince was the Magoru Empire's future king. Cal was at a loss for words. He had an ominous feeling. Cal tried to answer the best he could. I know the things I need to know, like the color of his eyes and hair." I bet I'll recognize him if I see him." "Whatever. Basically, you're saying that you've never seen him before." Alberu continued to speak to Cal, who was avoiding eye contact in a tone that seemed to be saying that he knew what Cal was thinking about. "I heard that you are guaranteed victory if you know your enemies and yourself. Go there." Cal started to speak. "Your Highness, maybe my ears are going bad, but I believe that I heard something weird just now." "Go there, to the Empire. Why would I?" Cal did not understand why Alberu, someone who knew his personality well, would say something like that. Ah, I said it wrong. Let me fix that. Alberu raised his hand in a way that seemed to admit that he was wrong. Let me rephrase. An even greater strait landed on Cal as Alberu started to speak again. Go to the Empire with me. Go to the Empire with him. To do something big. To do what? Something big. Cal could finally see the smirk on Alberu's face. Cal's frown quickly disappeared. Cal leaned back into the wooden chair and started to speak. Let me hear what you have in mind. Translator's note. 1. Not sure what a tiger-specific smile really is.